Okay, now I can actually start recording. Yeah, I don't want to access the Steam community while playing. Please leave me be, Steam. I love you, but please leave me be. Okay. So, last time we'd only, like, landed on Rokenjima itself. I got to introduce most of the characters. Hold on. Oh, hold on. I think I hit new game. Oh, hold on. System. Title back. How embarrassing. Come on. Start. Load. Yeah, I don't know why I hit episode 1. My bad. I forgot that saves, like, aren't linked to an individual episode. They're just saves in general. Okay. So, we're on the island. We've met most of the family now, barring a couple that we'll meet soon. Nothing really interesting has happened. Again, the intro kind of drags on. I think that the anime could have stood to be, like, twice as long. Not to mention the fact that it finished before it covered the entire story. That's maybe a more important thing to gripe about. But anyway. Now that I think about it, that must be why I felt something out of place for a while now. I can't hear the cries of the seagulls. Seagulls? The birds? If I remember correctly, whenever we came to this island in the past, the seagulls always greeted us with their lively nya-nya cries. Because of that, whenever I hear the cries of seagulls anywhere else, I get the feeling that I'm coming to a family conference. So something that some people might know, especially old-time Umineko fans. Umineko very literally translates to sea cat, but it means seagull. So a lot of people used to call Umineko sea cats, and I imagine some people still do. By that I mean they call the series sea cats. It's kind of a funny thing. Except for the small part of the island where those of the Ushiromura head family live, Rokenjima has been left uncultivated, which apparently makes it a paradise for wild birds. Supposedly, there was a cliff somewhere that housed a huge seagull colony, so this island was always full of seagulls. Not having those seagulls here to greet us made me feel a bit lonely. What's wrong, Battler? Right, honorifics. I just want to control F all those out. Oh, on Rosa. Nah, it's nothing really. I was just thinking it's a bit lonely without the cries of the seagulls. My, that's true now that you mention it. Even though they're always so noisy, today there isn't one to be seen. Ooh? Why no seagulls? Maybe it's because the seagulls are having a get-together somewhere too? Moria, did you want to see the seagulls? Ooh, wanted to see them. Still, it's a bit strange there isn't even a single one around. Maybe Jessica grilled them all and ate them. Ooh? The hell? Don't say disturbing stuff like that. You'll get Mario believing it. Ooh, Jessica grilled them. Jessica grilled them. Ooh. I did not. Why the hell would I do something like that? That's right, Jessica grilled them. Skin and meatballs, liver and onion. Swimming meat dolls, liver and onion. Ooh, how old was she again? 8? As I made fun of Jessica, Moria tagged along, looking like she was having fun. Ooh, I never guessed she was such a good sport. Alrighty then, from today on, I'll make you my #1 follower. As I smiled at her, she beamed, looking overjoyed, possibly because she was happy about this little connection we'd made with each other. That's not it, Moria. I've heard wild birds are attuned to changes in the weather and atmospheric pressure. She does not know what atmospheric pressure is. Granted, that's not as big of a word in Japanese, but still, she doesn't know what that is. The weather will probably get worse tonight. The seagulls might have returned to their nests early. Ooh, not grilled? Jessica didn't grill him? No. I wouldn't do something like that. Battler, you admit right now that you lied. Battler, Maria's a naive girl, so she takes even jokes seriously. You should choose your jokes more carefully. George gently scolded me. Even though I outstripped George in height, George was still George, of course. There was no choice but to obediently apologize. Sure, my bad. Maria, that was a joke. The seagulls are all taking it easy in their nest today, that's all. Battler lied? George told the truth? Had she actually been tricked, despite all the fun she was having? Her pure eyes made me feel guilty. Maybe I went a little overboard with her after all. Yeah, that's right. What George said is true. The weather's bad, so they probably went home for the day. It doesn't mean they're gone. Right, Aunt Rosa? That's right. Tomorrow, when the weather gets better, I'm sure they'll come back so we can hear them cry meow meow like they always do. Ooh, I'll wait until the weather gets better and then they come back. Gotta wait till tomorrow. Gotta wait until the weather's better. Ooh. You hate seagulls. I mean, I don't have to really see them too often, considering I'm not really that close to the sea, but we do have some kind of gulls. I've seen them like Walmart parking lots, I swear, before. Again, even though we're not near the sea, I'm in like rural New York. They're kind of funny birds. I like watching clips of them, at the very least. Maybe dealing with them in real life wouldn't be so pleasant. Oh, I need to get rid of that cursor capture, sorry. It's because I had to remake this. Mario was in a lighter mood and was looking forward to tomorrow, when the seagulls would come back and fill the skies. Wow, it's just like the name of the game, When the Seagulls Cry. Still, George really was amazing at taking care of kids. I think I remember George taking good care of me as well when I was a brat 6 years ago. I was still a brat. George, that's probably your gift. George is amazing at taking care of young kids. If you wanted to, I bet you'd do great with a job in childcare, don't you think? Yeah, it's almost like George was born to do something like that. Personally, I think that'd suit you better than doing business in some company president's office. Oh no, childcare is a fine career path, but it's not a job where merely liking children is enough. You really are modest, George. But Battler is quite good with children too. Just a second ago, even though it didn't last long, Mario seemed to be having a lot of fun. Please keep on playing with her like you did just now. Just choose your jokes more carefully, okay? Aunt Rosa winked at me, giggling a little. She's a real mother, I thought to myself, who's happy to see Mario having fun. Come on, Rosa. You brats too. What the hell are you doing? Let's get going. Okay, we're coming. The old bastard was waving for us to hurry up. Yeah, we needed to get moving. We might as well have this conversation after setting down our luggage in our rooms. Now then, everyone, allow me to lead you to the guest house where you'll be spending the night. Please, this way. Go to call to everyone and led the way. Masawa brought up the rear. Yeah, Umineko's like full of watercolor art backgrounds, I guess. I think these are just edited photos, but I think that's a pretty cool aesthetic to have. A serpentine twisting path led through a dim forest. It ran a bit uphill. I guess the path was made all twisty so the slope wouldn't seem too steep, but personally, I'd have been happier if they'd had the guts to make some stairs in a straight line. No doubt they made the path twist on purpose to put on airs of distance and importance. Before long, we saw garden-style stone steps. From here on, I do have some memories. Go up these and... At the top of the stone steps, we saw a beautiful guest house. Its facade was lovely, of course, but more importantly, we couldn't enter its doors without having our hearts stolen away by the splendor of the beautiful rose garden spreading before it. I kind of almost wish I could show up some screenshots for the anime to kind of like show the layout of stuff more so you'd get a better feel for it. Because you get like a good picture of the entire flower garden out front. It's got like rows of flowers. There's some scenes that take place out here. Ah, it's as beautiful as ever this year. A real delight for the eyes. After climbing the stone steps, the people greeted by this rose garden gave voice to their impressions one by one. Is it just me, or are the flowers a little less lively this year? It's probably because it wasn't that hot this summer. I also believe that was a factor. Sadly, this year's blooming is a tad inferior when compared to last year's. Even so, it was a delightful rose garden. I remember that even 6 years ago, huge numbers of roses had greeted us every year. This rose garden was the first thing that greeted the people who came to Rakenjima. Even our parents, who came every year, couldn't help but give voice to their admiration. In fact, it seemed to have undergone a power-up from the garden in my memories of 6 years ago. This place is always so amazing. It would be wonderful to have a rose garden like this at home. Give it up. Who do you think would take care of it? Roses are a real pain with bugs and diseases to worry about. Well, from what I've heard, Kyrie takes care of her rose every day and makes sure no bugs get anywhere near it, right? Huh? What are you talking about? That's right. Though in this person's case, the rose goes after the insects like some nasty carnivorous plant. Oh, so that's what you mean. Come on, Rosa, can't you give that a rest just for today? I'd hardly call him a rose. I put that sort of thing completely behind me. I wonder. After all, you're a womanizer on almost a genetic level. No need to worry, Rosa. When a rose gives you too much trouble, it's always best to snip it at the root. Oof. Don't want to imagine that. Oh, such frightening talk this is. Guys who are popular with the ladies are always forced to live dangerously. I sure hope I turn out a bit prettier in my next life. Hey Yoshi, like I keep saying, it isn't like that at all. And Kyrie, stop it, you're freaking me out. You made my rose wilt. Ugh. Stop talking like that. Hi, Chuckles. I was gonna say, I also set up the figurine I got given a few days back. I kind of moved the camera so you could see things from back there, but I was given a nice Renko. She's got a book. She's not posable or anything in particular, but she like attaches to this little star thing here and stands up. It's pretty nice. I guess it's not actually that expensive of a figure either, so I don't feel bad getting given it like that. It's like $20 or $30, I believe. I think it's pretty nice for that quality, for that price, rather. Looks good to me. So I kind of took the opportunity to set it up there to reorganize my shelf a little bit. I put a few more games up there. I have 2 Sanses up there now. I have an old Marissa figure that I got like 10 years ago that's up there now too. Hey Mario, look over here. These roses are especially magnificent. Magnificent roses. Ooh. Smells pretty sweet. Look, this suits my elegance perfectly. What elegance? Hey, cut it out. Mario's gonna imitate you and get hurt by the thorns. She yelled at me as I leaned in to smell the rose's scent with an exaggerated gesture. I thought she was overreacting, but when I turned around, I saw Mario imitating my every gesture, and George smiling broadly at us. Hey now, Mario, be careful. Rose thorns can hurt. Ooh? George, only this rose is strange. Ooh. Strange? What's wrong? Mario pointed at a single rose. I immediately understood why she found it odd. In the midst of all these magnificent roses, one single rose was starting to wilt. There wasn't any particular reason. Some roses flourish and others wilt. That's all there was to it, but Mario seemed very concerned about the only unhealthy one of the group. Hey, you. One of my sea cats. It must have made her feel lonely. So you feel sad for this rose because it's the only one that isn't healthy? Ooh, the others are all healthy, but this one's sad. Well, they all bloom and wither at their own paces. I'll bet this one's just started to wilt early because it got to bloom before any of the others. Yeah, that's right. It probably just bloomed like crazy, fulfilled its duty, and went to sleep. You shouldn't get so worked up about it. Ooh. It seemed that Maria's pure and sensitive nature was making her feel some emotional pain for the rose that wilted alone. Even though she understood the logic of it, it still felt lonely to her. Then, Maria, why don't you look after this rose until we leave? Ooh? George straightened up and felt around in his pocket. He then took out the wrapper from the candy he had been sucking on the plane. He'd been sucking on the plane. I guess you can say sucking instead of sucking on, sure. He twisted it into a thin string, then gently tied it to the rose as a sort of marker. Hey, that's pretty cute. Let's mark it with this. Later on, you can come and give it some water. I'm sure Mr. Rose will be happy. Ooh, come to give it water. I think you should give Mr. Rose here a name. I'm sure that'll make it happy, and you'll get to know it a little better. A name? A name. Ooh. Though she still wore her usual sullen face, Moria crossed her arms and began to consider this intently. She's thinking. At the very least, she appeared to have been completely pulled out of her slump. Nice going, George. George has always been really understanding. Can't help but respect him. Yeah, I guess he was just born that way. We've got to start picking up tips. Was this garden just as magnificent when you were all kids? It was only after I stopped living here that it grew so big. Before that, the garden was simpler, though I'm still attached to that one. What's his name? Kraus. Kraus fiddled with it too much, with that vaguely bad taste of his. I liked it much better before. Ava, you've got to think positive. Setting aside how it used to look, its beauty now is something to be admired. You'll be able to relax a lot better if you look at it that way. I didn't mean it like that. I was just saying that I wanted you to see this garden the way it was before, too. Everyone, if you please, I shall guide you to your rooms now. Goda called to everyone to ask if we were ready, but our hearts had been completely stolen away by the rose garden that none of us had seen for a year, so we didn't pay much attention to him. Since we were to travel group, it wasn't like we had a strict schedule to follow. Besides, since our parents were visiting their old home, full of nostalgia, It wasn't like they had to let themselves be urged on by anyone or anything. Understanding the situation, Goda continued to wait, smiling widely, until her parents got tired of the roses and told them to guide us to our rooms. He's trying so hard. I'm still having a hard time, like, voicing Hideyoshi. It's weird, like, doing accents, you know? Come on, you. Let go of my arm. Let go of my arm. Come on. Oh? Hey! If it isn't Canon. It's been so long. How you doing? Uncle Hideyoshi suddenly shouted. You got more characters than me. In the direction he was waving was a slender boy. Meeting him right after a huge man like Goda probably emphasized his small stature. The boy was in the middle of transporting piled-up gardening tools and the like in a wheelbarrow. When he realized he was being called to stop, he set down the wheelbarrow, took his hat off, and bowed his head. Good afternoon. I figured he was probably younger than me, and I realized by the general atmosphere surrounding him that he was another servant. He greeted us in response to Uncle Hideyoshi's call, but he seemed like he might be pretty unsociable most of the time. It was a greeting that lacked feeling. When Goda noticed that our interest had shifted towards him, he went to the boy's side and introduced him to us. Battler, allow me to introduce you. This is one of the Why do you get finicky on my lap? Gotta bite me again. She's so temperamental. This is one of the servants of the Ushiramida head household. Canon, greet our guest. I'm pleased to meet you. I am the servant. Canon. And there's his slightly difficult to read name. Yep, my first impression wasn't wrong. He seemed to be unsociable, or at least not so good at talking. Compared to Goda, who was extraordinarily polished as a servant, you couldn't help but feel an inexperience typical of his age. When Goda urged him in a whisper to give a bit more of an introduction, the boy named Canon only cast his eyes downwards. Canon, could you perhaps give him a little more of a greeting? No, because we are furniture. He didn't seem to be refusing to greet us out of spite. Rather, he seemed to have fallen silent because he didn't know what else to say to us in greeting. But, well, Ken is shy and doesn't tend to talk much. He might not be that sociable, but deep down, he's really a good person. You just caused trouble. Why are you back here? No app. No app. Stay on the desk. Don't get him wrong. You've been working here for 3 years, haven't you? Pretty sure you started a year before Goda, right? Even though he wasn't exactly giving a terrible first impression, Jessica hurriedly backed him up. I see. Apparently his unsociable nature causes him trouble a lot. Okay then, nice to meet you. I'm Battler. I'm 18. How old are you? He fell silent as though wondering whether or not it was a question he'd have to answer. But here again, Jessica plowed ahead. If I remember correctly, Kenan's 2 years younger than us, so 16, right? Yes, that is correct. It looked like he would have preferred not to tell us his age if given the choice. That was probably because he thought we'd look down on him for it. I remember that when I was around his age, I hated being asked how old I was by adults. I see, 16, huh? That's gotta be a delicate time. Which means I probably asked something I shouldn't have. Yeah, I'm glad you're about our age. Just be cool and call me Battler. And I'll call you Canon. Thank you very much. But the sentiment alone is sufficient. I'll say Battler-sama here, sure, why not? Battler-sama. Jessica looked panicky for some reason. She seemed to think my impression of Canon was getting worse because of his refusal. Well, as a girl, Jessica probably couldn't understand the fretful male heart at this age. As his elder, even by just 2 years, I took it upon myself to be understanding of that. Canon, could you perhaps be a little more courteous? A smiling face is also part of a servant's duty. My apologies. I shall make an effort. Oh, Goda, Canon is trying his best, yes. It looked like he was often warned about being unsociable, and apparently he hadn't improved one bit. I want to say that like Goda used to work at a hotel or something like that. And that's like why he has this training. I might be making that up in my head though. Goda kept his dismissive smile, but let out a small sigh of resignation escape. Well then, I still have work to do. If you'll excuse me. It looked like Canon himself was uncomfortable with remaining silent here any longer. After another perfunctory bow, he turned around and started pushing the wheelbarrow again. Just then, the wheelbarrow suddenly wobbled and fell, scattering the load. I guess the wheelbarrow's single wheel got caught on a pebble and lost its balance. What do you think you're doing? Now, clean it up quickly. Goda urged him to hurry in a quiet voice, as though hinting that it was shameful for a servant to appear clumsy in front of guests. Canon wordlessly reloaded the wheelbarrow with the fallen objects, as if to say that he understood quite well without being told. He seemed to be fine with the light-looking gardening tools, shovels and such, but he looked like he was having trouble getting his arms around and lifting up some sacks of fertilizer. Are you okay? You're so careless. Here. My lady, you will dirty your garments. Please, leave this to us. With a smooth motion, Goda took the shovel that Jessica had picked up. Behind him, Kenan was having trouble with the sacks of fertilizer. Ooh, you'll dirty your garments? Don't worry, the ones I'm wearing aren't that expensive. They look it, though. Besides, I hate guys who just sit there and make the waitress pick up the fork they dropped at a restaurant. I lifted up the other bags that had fallen. Of course, they weren't light, but for me it was a piece of cake. As a growing boy, after all. Kenan looked at me, surprised. It was the face of someone who never would have expected to receive help from a guest. But Battler-sama, don't worry about it. I will take care of everything, so... Don't you worry. I may not look it, but I've got it where it counts. Heh. Since Kenan looked like he hadn't yet gone through his growth spurt, he was stuck with a sort of weak body. This kind of weight might have been too much for him. It's quite heavy. It's natural that it would be difficult for you. Don't worry about it, Kenan. Okay, my time to shine. This makes up for the boat stuff before, right? Huh, as if this could make up for freaking out like that. Later I'll tell you about it too, Kenan. Battler was totally hilarious. Gonna fall. Ooh. As they did this, I piled all the stuff back into the wheelbarrow. I beg your forgiveness for letting you witness such unsightliness. Come now, that's quite enough. Please, go. Letting the guests, who were supposed to feel welcome, see such a disgraceful thing, must have been hideously embarrassing for a servant. Pressed by Goda to hurry up and go, Kenan left. You're too harsh on him, Goda. Shouldn't you have helped him instead of being a bully? That was wrong of me. I deeply implore your forgiveness. Without even a twitch in his smile, Goda apologized elegantly. Kenan has a ton of things he's good at too. It's just that being young works against him all the time. It's a crying shame. Well, it's a prickly age. Let's just leave him be. After all, closed-mouthed servants are the best kind. Isn't that right, Kumasawa? Ho 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 ho, Rudolph-sama, you truly are harsh. There's no servant as silent as me, of course. Eren smiled wryly at that obvious lie. Even she herself didn't believe that, not in her wildest dreams. So she must have said it to lighten the mood. Kumasawa is the best servant. Yep, that's the kind of character Kumasawa used to be. The one stiff atmosphere had cleaned up at once thanks to her cheerful smile. I'd like to set down our luggage soon. Goda, what rooms are we all going to take? It shall be the same as the previous year. Allow me to guide you. Please, this way. We headed towards a trim, elegantly simple guest house. This was going to be our temporary quarters for the night. Yeah, so something good to remember. There is the main house, then there's the guest house. You're going to need to like pay attention to characters and like the layout of the island and such. Obviously, in like a mystery game, this stuff is all going to be really important. So I'll kind of like go over it, review it whenever it's important. Kenan watched over a hedge as the guests all entered the guest house. Then he let his eyes fall on those heavy sacks of fertilizer piled up in the wheelbarrow. In his mind, he kept going over his previous mistake. Battler, big and strong, had picked up the sacks in front of him. The sacks Kenan couldn't lift himself, as if they were feathers. It would be extremely difficult for an outside observer to guess what emotions that favor had stirred up in Kenan. But as far as you could tell by watching him hang his head, there was something that he just couldn't let go of. Muttered words escaped his lips, but those words he murmured were so soft that they didn't even reach his own ears. Even I. Kenan hung his head, slightly biting his lower lip. Make of it whatever you like. Way over here. One moment. Okay. I remember the rose garden, but I don't remember this guest house at all. Was it built recently? Torayan. Right, I forgot this thing had a name. Torayan. Visitor's Retreat was written on a gatepost-like thing, but since everyone called it the guest house, I followed their lead. Much easier. The brand new Western-style guest house, which stood overlooking the roses, had a magnificent design carefully done in harmony with the garden. Correct. It was built the year before last. Ever since then, they've had a sleepover here. Yeah, this place is more fun than that junky old mansion you knew. I wish my room was over here. Ooh, I want a room here too. I want one. And you know they've got a lot of money when they build an entirely separate house just for people to stay at for like a few days a year. They are loaded. I guess you could say my own house was upper class, but to me, it felt completely ordinary compared to the head family. The display of wealth was shocking, as was the fact that they built this kind of awesome guest house for guests who came over only a few times a year. See? It's not as me. Eva-sama, Hideyoshi-sama, please do make use of this room. Yoro-sama, Kirei-sama, please take this room here. I really do love how beautiful and elegant this place is. Western-style architecture truly is wonderful. I can handle Western design for a few days, but any longer than that and you need the good old Japanese look. Japanese people just relax best on tatami mats. If you say so. They've been fighting over whether to make our new house Japanese style or Western style. Mom still holds a grudge about Dad having the construction started with the Japanese layout, and they bicker all the time about it. I'm really jealous, George. Your parents get along well, don't they? Mine are so frosty. Then again, they're always in sync when it comes to my grades. All the rooms seem to be for 2 people. I was grateful since I wasn't going to be forced to share the same room with the old bastard, under the pretext that we were family. And anyway, I figured those 2 wouldn't be able to enjoy themselves with someone like me around anyway. Hehehe. What's with that creepy smile? You're thinking about something dirty, aren't you? Hehehe. Something dirty? Of course not. Please enjoy your stay. Ow! That hurts, you old bastard. Once again, Dad pulled my ears from behind. Cut the crap. I'm getting a stomachache and I'm not in the mood for this. He's smiling though. You're the guest of honor this time around, so play as nice as possible with Dad and Kraus and the rest. At the very least, be careful of what you say in front of Dad, got it? Because wisecracks don't go too well with him. Jessica, what's the head's mood been like lately? Same as last year, I guess. Considering they say he's got 3 months left to live, he's as lively, grumpy, and irritable as ever. Meaning, this year he's in his usual bad mood. And as usual, the only one who's able to look after him is Genji. It seems the master will open his heart to no one else. Lately, us small people have not even been granted an audience with him. He shut himself up in his study again, probably doing nothing but that weird black magic of his. What he does for a hobby is his own damn business, but when he starts stinking up the house, it really gets on my nerves. I wish he'd never come out of that study again. You shouldn't talk like that about the elderly. We're all indebted to him since he rebuilt the Ushidamina family. We should be more grateful. Well, sorry. After being rebuked by George, Jessica had no choice but to take back her thoughtless remark. The Ushidamina family was wealthy beyond belief, but of course, that meant all its members were a bit strange, and completely out of touch with the world at large. And at the top of the chain, the family head, our grandfather, seemed especially strange and terrifying even for our family. Dad said he was getting a stomachache earlier, and I imagine that reflected the honest feelings of all the adults here today. No doubt they were jealous of us grandchildren, who could just play around and laugh without a care. From the stories Dad told me, the family head was a violent man who ruled with his fists, beating his children, even his daughters, mercilessly with a wooden sword. If he was so strict and uptight about that, why couldn't he have been a bit more conservative with his kids' names? Because of that, even us grandkids have had to suffer. Poor dollar dad. Anyway, I can't say I have any trouble believing those terrifying stories about him. I don't remember meeting him very often, but I think I recall him looking extremely grumpy all the time, always making people cower with that sharp gaze of his. I remember that the room's atmosphere got so tense whenever he was around you couldn't even breathe. What my dad said about me being the guest of honor now carries a little more oomph for me. 6 years ago I was in elementary school, but I'm a high schooler now. If I act up, things could get serious. Ooh, scary. Kawaii kawaii. He does look frightening, but he's not so terrifying that you need to tense up like that. Nothing of what he says is truly unreasonable. He may be clumsy at talking, but he's a very logical person. But George, you've been the family darling since like forever because of your awesome grades, right? Grandfather treats us completely different. I've even gotten slapped with a wooden sword. On my ass, on my maidenly innocent ass. Well, you're the heiress of the head family, Jessica. Grandfather's giving you special attention. You've got to realize that his strictness reflects his high hopes for you. Oh, come on. Seriously, I could just turn the succession over to you, George. It's a bit of a heavy burden for me to carry. I think I already said it before, but Jessica's the girl heir to the head family. We're only cousins in branch families, so she probably feels a totally different sort of pressure than we do. Ooh? Jessica, is that heavy? If I help hold it, will it get lighter? Thanks. It's okay, I'm not gonna push on you, Maria. I'm gonna bear this cross until my grave. Don't worry. She was grateful for Maria's innocent concern, but Jessica's face still seemed to contain some of the uneasiness she felt towards the future. Maybe we were in the same boat. Any high schooler with exams approaching would have trouble hiding their anxiety for the future. Maria, come here. You and I will be in this room. Battler, I heard you're going to be with me in this room here. Oh? Now there's a surprise. This is bigger than our parents' rooms, dang. Well, I figured we cousins would all want to hang out together, so I told them to get a bigger room ready. Ooh, I like it here more too. I'd rather be here than with Mama. Ooh. Oh, you like it better here too, Maria? Okay, this room is George's and mine, but we'll give you special permission to come in. Better keep it a secret from your mom, okay? Ooh, it's a secret. Aunt Rosa was right behind us, but Maria still answered, striking the air with her fist clenched tight. After setting down their luggage in the rooms, our parents had gathered up again in the corridor. Hey, what are you brats planning to do? Are your cousins just gonna stay here and chat? It seemed they were heading to the mansion to announce their arrival. Normally they would make us follow them and greet everyone together, but if that had been the case, Dad would have just told us to come, and that'd be the end of it. He's saying it's okay if we don't come, so what do we do? Well, it's gonna be lunchtime before long anyway. Better let the kids unwind here. Besides, if worst comes to worst, this might be their last chance to play outdoors. Ooh, I'll go too. Maria, you house sit for Mama, okay? Behave yourself and wait here. Ooh. Since Maria was being told to house sit here, we certainly couldn't leave her on her own. George noticed this immediately and gave a clear reply for all of his cousins. Well then, we'll accept your offer and house sit. We've got lots of stories to tell each other after being away for a year. That sounds wonderful, and Battler has 6 years worth of stories to tell, right? Yeah. I'll take care of the house like a good boy. Kumasawa, I'm gonna stay here too. We'll break rank and leave the rest of the adults, Perhaps that would be best, I'll report it to Madam. Then allow me to guide you all to the mansion. This way, please. The other children are one thing, but George is getting to be an adult. Wouldn't it be better if he came with us? If we make him come, then poor George will be the only one out of place. Interacting with his cousins is also important. Okay, see y'all later. The adults left one after the other. They left in the same formation as a trip to the harbor, with Goda leading and Kumasawa taking up the rear. As we gathered in the room assigned to us cousins, George asked us to excuse him for a second. He rushed over to Kumasawa, who was following behind the disappearing adults, and seemed to ask her something. He soon finished his business and came back. What's up, George? Nothing. I just wanted to ask her something. Ooh, tell me too. What could George be asking Kumasawa? And not me, I wonder. I don't have any clue. No, it's a misunderstanding. Not that I know what you're misunderstanding. George was getting pretty tongue-tied. It was almost as though he felt guilty about something, and Jessica knew exactly what he was worried about. At any rate, it's no fun if Jessica gets to know about it, not me. Hey, Mario, it looks like we're the only two out of the loop, right? Don't you want to know what they're talking about? Ooh, we want to know too. Ooh. he likes to ooh with her sometimes. Battler's terrible, but Battler's great. I fooled around while oohing together with Maria. No, I'm telling you, it's no big deal. Liar, I'm surprised you tell such a terrible lie, George. Confess. Maria, you tickle his right side, I'll tickle his left. Ooh, I've got his right side, Battler's got his left. Ooh. Wait a second. Wait, you two. Stop. What is that awful sound effect? Maria and I played around, chasing George as he tried to escape, rolling on the bed. I realize high schoolers aren't supposed to bounce around like kittens, but I still miss this kind of fun. A warm, cozy kind of fun. George, what were you asking Kumasawa? Well, I've got a good guess. It's been years since the last time he visited the head family. Who knows what servants might have come and gone during that time. Either way, it looks like he'd like to go and say hi. Ooh? Say hi? I want to say hi too. What the hell? That's nothing to feel guilty about, George. I'm not buying it. Alright, don't be fooled. George is still hiding something. More torture. Oria. Stop it, seriously. Maria, you too. Stop already. I'm not gonna do the laughter. She's probably busy cleaning or getting lunch ready. Don't worry, she'll drop by to say hi sooner or later. I bet you'd rather have been welcomed in by Shannon instead of that nosy Goda. Shannon? Shannon. Yeah, I remember a girl with that name. Is she still a servant? How's she doing? We'll gradually meet all the characters. Saying that, there's a lot of characters we're not going to see in episode 1. Each episode still manages to bring in new ones. I'm not going to say how yet, but it'll come up. Let's do a quick save and everything here. So let's see. We've got Cannon in here now. He's the only new one so far today. Servant Cannon. Oh, it says like servant at the front. Huh. A young servant. He performs his duties silently and diligently, but is not so heavily regarded as a servant due to his unsociable nature. There are multiple other servants with the On character in their pseudonyms. He and Shannon just happen to be the ones on duty that day. So yeah, this will come up later, but Shannon and Cannon aren't those servants' real names. They're essentially names that they get given as servants. It's going to go more into that later on. So I'll let the book do it itself. By the way, Natsuhi, how's your headache been lately? It seemed pretty serious before. I've been much better lately. Thank you for your concern. Oh, right. Here. 45 streams, jeez. I remember a long time ago when 45 streams felt like a lot, but I've been pretty busy the past year. Oh, right. Here, a present for you, Natsuhi. Thank you very much. I'm always receiving gifts from you. Is this black tea? It's herb tea with peppermint and lemon balm. It's a blend from a well-known store, and it's supposed to be good for headaches. Natsuhi always looks like she has a headache. I thought it might help you too. Rosa was always a conscientious woman. Probably because she was the youngest of 4 and much younger than the other 3, she managed to grow up without gaining the venomous nature of her siblings. Her kind words got Natsuhi to soften her expression for just a moment, but it wasn't enough to melt her stony gaze, hardened as it was by long years of mental stress. Come to think of it, you're always complaining about those headaches. Pull yourself together. Jessica has her exams this year, right? That's going to be a turning point in her life. Will she really be able to rely on you as a mother if you're like that? Besides, Natsuhi, you're 3 years younger than me. You should get your act together. I apologize. I've had a tendency for headaches all my life. Even under normal circumstances, Ava sometimes failed to choose her words carefully, but her comments aimed at Natsuhi contained shards of obvious malice, though she hid it with a smile. Of course, that fact didn't escape Natsuhi. She frantically contained her urge to grimace and pretended to ignore Ava. Yeah, my sleep schedule's been shifting back and forth. I've been going out for breakfast with my mom most days, so the fact that she gets me up before noon has been helping keep things somewhat steady. But that didn't stop me from being up till like 4 AM last night. Oops. Our battler will have his exams this year too. Rudolph, shouldn't you be a little concerned as well? For the sake of your own son, you'd better get serious to the point of having headaches like Natsuhi. If I say anything, he automatically rebels. So what should I say? Should I say the opposite, that it's okay for him to mess around? That's probably the only way I could get him to listen to me. Hideyoshi, George did really well on his exams, right? Please, you've got to teach me the trick to handling children. Well, that's probably because I got him to understand why he should study. Study isn't worth anything on its own. That's right, the real point of studying is to practice research and stuff on your own when you get bumped into something you don't know. If you can't do that, you can't be useful to society. I'm not talking about math or writing. You gotta learn how to learn. That's splendid. I wish our Jessica could understand that as well. If she is to be the heiress of the Ushimura family, then at this rate, do you really have to force her into becoming the successor? After all, a woman has to find a woman's happiness. Parents shouldn't force such things on their children, shouldn't you think? Hold your horses, Ava. Each family has its own way of raising their kids. You shouldn't be pushy. I'm sorry. Natsuhi, don't take it the wrong way. Though the light shining in through the window was quite warm despite the cloudy weather, there was a dark mood about the room. I'm making up words. It's a clear sign that I need water. Which was probably causing headaches for more than just Natsuhi. As if to sweep away that mood, Kirie brightly made a suggestion to all present. Still, this black tea has a really lovely aroma. Let's drink it right away. In Japan, surely you couldn't find something like Leopold's black tea anywhere at Ginza, right? I see you know a lot about it, Kirie. I guess it was worth going to the trouble of buying it. Kirie and Rosa stood up from their seats and made as if to prepare the black tea, but Natsuhi forestalled them. I thank you both, but we can try that later. One of our people will soon be coming to bring some tea, so please relax. Leave it for later, you two. Let's enjoy our welcome drink. Rudolph gave a subtle signal with his eyes for them to sit down again. Kirie and Rosa understood instantly and obediently returned to their seats. The initial greeting of the guests was complete, so it was time for them to be served some tea. It was embarrassing for the host that the tea was late, especially now that the guests were talking about making tea themselves. Natsuhi bit her lower lip, frustrated by the ineptitude of the servants who were late bringing in the tea. Seeing her face, Eva immediately started to giggle. Of course, Shannon had no way of knowing what was taking place in the parlor. She came pushing a servant cart piled with teacups. For no apparent reason, Natsuki gave her a pained look, and Shannon couldn't help but flinch without knowing what she had done wrong. Excuse me, your tea is ready. Oh, Shannon, it's been a while. You keep getting prettier every time I see you. Oh, thanks. Save the chatting for after you've set the table. The tea will get cold. I apologize, madam. She apologized like a small frightened animal, bumped against the servant cart, and made a jarring racket as she dropped several teaspoons. Her clumsiness made Natsuki's expression turn even darker, which made Shannon quail even more. Quail? What does that even mean in this context? Quail. That? Let's see. Oh yeah, it can mean flinch or recoil, apparently. Interesting. I had no idea that meant anything but the name of a bird. Weird. The more you know. See, I'm learning new English words from this. There's no way I'd be able to smoothly read this in Japanese. Come on, Natsuki. There's nothing wrong whether it's changing a few words in greeting. The tea must be plenty cold already, considering how long we've been kept waiting. There's no need to worry. It's not cold yet. Shannon finished setting the table quickly. I'm sorry, madam. Natsuki's irritation was obvious by now. The ineptitude that delayed the tea, the clumsiness of the servant, everything pointed to the incompetence of Natsuki's everyday leadership, making her lose face. As the person in charge of the Ushidameda head family's kitchen, allowing that clumsiness to be exposed, today of all days, was surely nothing less than total humiliation. Way off, Natsuki. Don't you think it's a little harsh to bully Shannon when she's trying her best? I'm not bullying anyone. What a nice aroma. May I ask what brand this is? I'm terribly sorry. I'll find out for you later. Kiria was trying to be nice, hoping to cut through the tense mood. However, Shannon had embarrassed herself instead, darkening Natsuki's face and the room's mood. By this point, Ava was audibly giggling. What's this? Shannon, don't you even know what you're pouring us? Come now, you mustn't serve something so suspicious to guests. We'll need a silver spoon at the very least before you can drink this. I'm sorry. I'll go get one immediately. Shannon, do you know what silver spoons are used for? They have to be silver. Do you know why? No. A teasing smile rose to Ava's face as she stared at Shannon setting the table. By itself, Ava's expression was sweet in an impish sort of way. However, the words being spun from her lips held the keenness of a razor within them. Shannon tried with all her might to avoid Ava's continuing gaze. Realizing that Shannon was hard-pressed for an answer, Rosa gave some timely help. They say that if silver is touched by poison, it darkens. Guess you've learned something today, Shannon. They were acting as though this tea needed to be tested for poison before it could be drunk. In Natsuki's eyes, this was an insult both to the tea and to herself for serving it. Rudolph laughed flippantly and patted Ava's shoulder. Silver cutlery wouldn't do. Any good for you. Just one lick of your poisonous tongue and even a silver plate would turn pitch black. Wahaha, since I get to hear that poison tongue every day, I must be poison-proof myself by now. Ava, I don't mind when you use it on me, but you'd better hold back when talking to people who have built up a resistance. My, how cruel. All I did was teach Shannon a bit about tea, didn't I? Everyone followed the lead, set by Hideyashi's hoarse laugh and chuckled, though not easily. Only Natsuki didn't join in, but for the time being, the conversation inside the parlor could now be mistaken for a lively and friendly chat. As Shannon finally finished setting the tea table and tried to leave, Kiria apologized to her in a lower voice for not being able to help. Shannon gave a light bow and made a hasty retreat. Shannon cast her eyes downwards as she pushed the cart down the corridor. Anyone seeing the pitiful way she looked might easily conclude that she'd been bullied in some way. Don't be sad. You didn't do anything wrong. You were watching. That is my role. It is? He just watches. Madam and Ava can go to hell, but the worst coward is that guy. Kenna glared hatefully in the opposite direction of the parlor. The preparations for the tea had been delayed by some trifling problems in the kitchen. These problems were not Shannon's fault. In fact, it had been Gota's mistake. After all, there was no way a show-off like Gota would give up a flashy job like bringing in tea when the guests arrived. He had ended up wasting time preparing the tea once again. So when he realized he wouldn't be able to score any points for this job, he pushed the task of setting the table on Shannon, who happened to be passing by. You might call it a clever move on his part, but there could be no doubt that it was a cowardly one. Yeah, he's kind of a self-serving asshole, actually. It's okay, Cannon. Thanks. I'm not bothered by it at all. Cannon's silence vividly expressed the distance between Shannon's word and how she actually felt. Thank you. Even if you're the only one who understands, I feel a bit better. You keep your feelings too bottled up. You should be less hard on yourself for once. Yeah, thanks. Suddenly, they both felt someone's presence in the world around. A middle-aged man stood there. It was Genji, the head servant. Oh, so one thing to mention, Shannon and Canon aren't actually siblings. It's just what Canon calls her. Big sis. It's a thing. What are you doing there? Shannon, hurry back to the kitchen. Yes, if you'll excuse me. Shannon humbly obeyed and promptly made to push the cart and leave. However, Canon appealed to Genji in silence, bearing something in his eyes that he could not express in words. What is it? Did something happen? Shannon didn't do anything wrong, but even so, they... Stop it, Canon. Please excuse me. I'll return to work immediately. Canon, you should go back to your post too. Please. If you say so. If that is all, then go. Yes. If you'll excuse me. From the shadows in the hallway, an old woman wearing an apron watched over them. It was Kumasawa. Poor Shannon, Canon. There's no reason for those two to be picked on. Still, Goda's dislike for them is an undeniable fact. Until Goda was taken in by the Ushida family, I hear he worked for a fabulous hotel somewhere. The manner of work he learned there was quite impressive, I believe. Yeah, so, I wasn't wrong. I pulled that from here, I guess. It's just that Goda is the newest servant here. He must have a lot of pride accumulated from his previous positions. Because Shannon and Canon are seniors here at the mansion, and yet are inexperienced and have gone through much less in life than he has, he picks on them every chance he gets. And also, sad as it may be, they are disliked by Madame Natsuhi too. Of course, if we're talking about experience, the Madame has been in his family much longer. And yet, this is one point where I cannot help but sympathize with the Madame as well. Truly, the Master is a man with many sins on his conscience. Why didn't he realize that such a trifling whim of his would give the Madame such an inferiority complex? Of course, on the inside, even the Madame is fully aware that those two don't deserve to be treated so harshly. However, the heart has reasons that reason knows not. I feel so sorry for them. I can't do anything but watch over them from the shadows. It's setting up a lot of stuff. It likes to do this transition, by the way. I think this is the first time it's done the glass shatter. It's an Umineko thing. I believe this actually keeps track of the time, which is important to know. Because again, this is a mystery novel. Time matters. Alibis and things might just matter a little bit. Things might happen. Probably things worse than someone stealing a wallet. The four of us cousins were enjoying our stories, just shooting the breeze. Anyway, there were both girls and guys here. Plus, we had people over a wide spread of ages. Adult, high school, and elementary school. Even if we just talked about our own lives, the other three kept listening attentively. I think I'm finally getting used to all this. Jessica and Mori have grown more than I could have imagined in the past 6 years. To be honest, I was feeling a bit uncomfortable, but talking like this, I guess that on the inside, nothing's really changed since back then. I mean, Mario's brain has developed a lot. I agree, you haven't changed a bit even after 6 years. Even though your body's gotten gigantic, you're still a kid inside. Ooh, I'm a kid too. I'm a kid too. Well, even you aren't going to be a kid forever, are you, Mario? I mean, you're going to transform from a kid into a cute young lady, aren't you? And when that happens, that fight as a board chest will reach Jessica's level, huh? When that happens, you gotta let me touch him, okay? It's a promise. That's, Let's just skip past Battler's almost grooming. He's probably joking. Ooh, let you touch him, promise. Ooh. Oh, there's gonna be a lot more than one murder. There's going to be more murders than characters. No, Maria, you can't make that kind of promise. That's bad, bad, bad. Ooh, I promise, so I'll let him touch him. I keep my promises. Always keep them. Ooh. Maria, you really are an earnest good girl. The guy you marry is going to be really lucky. Hey, stop trying to change the subject by making it sound pretty. Maria, that promise never happened. Never. Ooh, the promise is cancelled? Ooh. As I thought, without Battler in our little quartet, this group of cousins just didn't feel complete. These 6 years have been kind of lonely. That's true. We didn't really goof off like this. Still, we did have some pretty good constructive conversations, right? Stuff about preparing for our future, exam taking, finding jobs. Oh, I'm so sorry. Now that I'm here, we just talk about stupid stuff and mess around. But I'm having more fun this year. Ooh. That's true. I agree, this year's the most fun yet. Maria's sincere words probably spoke for everyone present. George stroked Maria's head, and she giggled like a happy kitten. Happy kitten. Kittens don't giggle. Pardon me. Your meal is ready. A timid knocking sound and the equal timid voice of a young woman came through the door. Jessica answered brightly. Shannon, come in. You remember Battler, right? Jessica stood up from the bed and opened the door. There stood a servant girl who must have been about our age. It's been quite some time since we last met, Battler-sama. It's nice to see you after 6 years. It's me, Shannon. Trembling a little as she noticed me, she bowed deeply. Ah, Jessica had me surprised, but look at you, Shannon. You've turned into a total beauty too, haven't you? You're too kind. Still, the food on this island must be really nutritional, huh? What are you eating and how are you training to get boobs that big? Guess I'll have to feel them a bit and see whether yours or Jessica's are bigger, okay? With both hands poised and saliva dribbling from my mouth, I closed in. For the sake of justice and my personal honor, I'd like to point out that I don't suffer from strange disease that makes my lymph nodes itch until I scratch my neck open, and which can only be prevented by fondling breasts. This is just a Battler-style method of communication. I'm glad that he's justifying it to us. If I slowly close in on her like this, odds are 8 or 9 out of 10 that I get slapped or clobbered, right? So I can use this Battler-sama original technique to spark a gag like that and break the ice. Well, it also means I really do get to touch them on that 1 in 10 chance though, right? Yeah, like that ever happened. At that point, my hands were less than a centimeter away from Shannon's boobs, but the counter-strike had yet to come. She blushed and lowered her head in embarrassment when she realized what was going on, but she just stood there with both hands politely joined in front of her, not even trying to resist or cover her breasts. Hey, I wasn't planning on this, but please hit me right now or I'm seriously gonna... There you go. Which is why I was glad that Jessica chose that time to drive her elbow into the back of my head. See, he means well, he's just kind of... He comes off as a dick. Yeah, ow. Thank you so much, Jessica. But why the hell are you thanking me? Seriously, my bad, Shannon. I almost got overwhelmed by your hypnotic chest. But more importantly, anyone who gets that close has got to be a molester. You've got to fight back when people do that. But you're an important guest, Battler-sama. Now look here, a pervert's a pervert whether he's a guest or not. A girl's chest has got an air defense identification range of about 10 centimeters or so. Once someone trespasses within 2 centimeters, that's already an invasion of airspace, so you'd better scramble the jets immediately and give him an instant slap. I couldn't do such a thing, because we are, furniture. Of course, she didn't want her breast touch, but if a guest so desired, she was prepared to sacrifice herself to suit their wants. A girl like this needs some urgent protection. To think such devoted girls like this still existed in this era. It's enough to make a man dizzy, but no. No! I'm coming at you with a perverted face again. Knock me down. Look out, pervert on the loose. This gag can't end until you deliver the punchline, so slap me. Please, hit me. I cannot fulfill your request, because I'm furniture. But if it were an order, I'd obey you, because that is my duty. Then I'll make it an order. The next time Battler tries to touch your breasts, counterattack with a slap. Got it? Yes, as you wish. From now on, that's what I'll do. Please understand, Battler-sama. Shannon announced this while bowing elegantly to me. Her expression was radiant. I gave her a thumbs up to show that I was fine with that. 6 years ago, you might have been mistaken for a servant's daughter who lent a hand at your parents' work, but now you're a full-fledged adult servant. How long have you been working here? Well, I've had the pleasure of serving this household for about 10 years. She's Shannon. The kanji of her name are read as Shannon. Now here's another name that's far from typical for a Japanese person. Back in the day, I was a kid myself, so I accepted her name without paying it much attention. Thinking about it now though, her name is pretty unusual, even though she's not a member of the Ushida family. Maybe it's like a servant's professional name or something. If so, that might explain why her name's so similar to Kennen, that kid I met earlier in the Rose Garden. She's a long-term servant who's served here since she was 6 years old. Her appearance had changed so much that I couldn't match her to the person in my memories, but we both knew each other 6 years ago. That shy part of her had always been there, but she did seem to have developed the allure you'd expect of a girl her age, especially in her breasts. Yes. That kid we met earlier, Kennen, is her little brother. He's not exactly my little brother. Still, he loves me like a big sister. He didn't cause you any trouble, right? He's the same as always. If only he were just a bit more sociable. I apologize if he's caused you any trouble. Nah, he didn't cause any trouble at all. As a fellow man, I understand how moody you can get at that age. It's no surprise he's unsociable. I was also moody at that age. A lot of cringe to think back on. Ooh. I get called that all the time too. I get called unsociable. Just like Canon. Ooh. You aren't unsociable at all, Maria. Ooh. Wanted to be like him. Ooh. You said the meal was ready, right? Yes. I'm sorry. Your meal has been fully prepared, so please allow me to guide you all to the mansion. Shannon bowed again formally and returned to her duty mode. We realized that if we made her stick around for any more light conversation, it would actually make it harder for her to do her job. We got up off our butts to avoid interfering with her work any further. So, shall we go to the mansion? Everyone's probably hungry, right? Yeah. I'm really looking forward to Gota's food. That guy was apparently a chef at this famous hotel, so he's super good at cooking. Ooh, I can't wait. Let's go, Maria. We're gonna stuff ourselves like pigs. Ooh, stuff ourselves like pigs. No, you can't take everything Battler says seriously, okay? Because he's always just joking around. Okay, let's go. Under Shannon's guidance, we headed toward the mansion. Once we meet a couple more characters, I'm just going to like review them and kind of show off the connections real quick, just so everyone can keep track, because it takes a bit of time. Met once again by the magnificent Rose Garden, we continued onward, as the intimidating mansion of the Ushid Head family came into view. It had apparently been built slowly after the war, so you could feel the dignity of almost a half-century hanging about it. The building was gorgeous on the surface, but old as it was, equipment such as its AC and heating were apparently quite frail. According to Jessica, midwinter was especially tough, what with all the drafts. Haven't these people ever heard of a kotatsu? Apparently not. Just muting a server on Discord. Okay. This is a good time for you to go grab a coffee, so I'll be right back. Hold on. Okay. Something I was thinking about the other day. By the time it's over, or even a few episodes in, Umineko is going to have a permanent effect on how you read mystery stories in the future. Much less, like, any story with any kind of complex plot, actually. It introduces some really important, let's say, concepts that apply to it and not necessarily other stories, but are really interesting if you do apply them. Regarding character viewpoints. I'm not going to say any more yet. But I look forward to talking about it. As we entered the entrance hall, an aged servant greeted us. Now him I remembered. Genji, who had been working here longer than anyone, filled the role of head servant. Battler-sama, it has been quite some time since last we met. As our eyes met, he greeted me with a calm, composed voice. His bow wasn't as graceful or refined as Gota's, but despite its simplicity, it communicated his feelings very well. Genji, it really has been a while. You look well. Thank you. I have been quite well. In Battler-sama, you have become a splendid young man. You're beginning to resemble the master in his youth. I look like grandfather? Guess that means grandfather was pretty popular with the ladies when he was young. Hehehe. From here on, I shall take Shannon's place and accompany you. Please, come this way. Shannon bowed deeply and watched us leave. After that, we headed towards the dining room under Genji's guidance. Genji, just like Kumasawa, stood in stark contrast to his young people who had grown beyond recognition over the last 6 years. His appearance was exactly the same as in my memories from 6 years ago. It was as though time had stopped since the last time we met. Genji was an extremely quiet and diligent person. He was basically grandfather's close aide or caregiver, and you might even call him grandfather's companion of many years. In fact, it seems he was by grandfather's side even more often than my late grandmother was. According to Jessica, grandfather trusted him more than any of his blood relatives. But I wonder how long he served. I never got the details, but I heard something about him being here since the very beginning, when this mansion was first constructed. Which would mean that he's dedicated half of his life to serving here. It's easy to see why he's so trusted. As we passed through a massive hall that extended up into the second story of the mansion, with no separating floor, I spotted something that hadn't existed in my memory of 6 years ago. Here we go, here's something important coming up. This is Umineko itself. If anything should ever signify you to Umineko, it should be this painting that I have in my room as well. I'm not going to show it off again today. It was an awfully big portrait hanging right in front of the stairs that rose to the second floor. Without thinking, I stopped walking, captivated by it. Since I'd stopped so fast, Maria, who was following behind me, ran into my back. Ooh? Sorry. Hey, Jessica, has that picture always been there? I pointed at the big, prominently displayed portrait in the hall. Everyone else stopped too. Oh, right. When you last came here, that hadn't been hung yet, had it? When was it again? Well, if my memory doesn't fail me, it was put in display sometime around the year before last. You were correct, sir. In April of the year before last, the master put it on display here, having previously ordered a painter to create it. Grandfather did that? So he paid to have it painted just for him, huh? The portrait suited his western mansion, and that woman in the elegant dress gave off a sense of refinement. I couldn't have guessed her age, but her sharp eyes and her strong will, and the strong will she seemed to possess made her look youthful. She seemed somehow different from the composed middle-aged woman you often see in famous pictures. If she had normal black hair, I might have assumed it was a portrait of my long-deceased grandmother in her prime. However, she had beautiful blonde hair and didn't look Japanese at all. So, just who is this lady? Maria answered that simple question enthusiastically, as though proud she knew the answer. Ooh, I know. She's Beatrice. It's supposed to be pronounced Beatrice, which is the Italian pronunciation, but for simplicity's sake, I'm going to be saying Beatrice, unless someone is shouting the name out. Because it's just way easier to read. What? Beatrice, she's a witch. Didn't you ever hear stories about her long ago? A witch? You mean the witch of this island? I think I already said this. Yeah, the game's dev stuff. You can look at the VOD later. I'm not going to be uploading on YouTube, but you can watch it on Twitch. It's like it's kind of like Danmaku Fu, like a Toho Danmaku engine that like you can plug stuff into essentially. Given another week or two, I'll probably start streaming like coding patterns in it. That's kind of a plan that I have, so you'll see it soon for sure. I think I already said this, but Rokenjima is a small island, only 10 kilometers in circumference. However, that's actually pretty massive considering that only the Ushimura family lives here. So, only the harbor and the area around the mansion were set up to be lived in. Beyond that, the island remained as untouched as when it was uninhabited. The vast and empty forest had absolutely no lights, phones, or people passing through. To understand how dangerous that is, you need to forget your common sense as a city dweller. After all, if you happen to fall down a hole in the depths of the forest and sprain your ankle, no one would come save you, no matter how much you cried or screamed. Then, once the sun went down, the forest would be wrapped in complete darkness, since there were no streetlights. And since there were no signs, it'd be easy to get lost and confused, losing your sense of direction inside the dark forest, and the music is loud all of a sudden. Nowadays, most people see a forest as a peaceful place, but to the people of bygone eras, before the light of civilization drove out the night, forests were as geographically separated from civilization as the sea. They were oceans above the ground. Fishermen who go out into the ocean are putting their lives at risk, despite their technical knowledge. In the same way, hunters who go to the forest are in danger, despite having specialized knowledge of their own. If children were to go play in such a dangerous forest, something terrible might happen. Someone's parents must have thought so. Maybe grandmother first said it, or maybe it was grandfather himself. Or perhaps the story's been passed down on this island since ancient times. There's a terrible witch in the forest, so you must not go in. At some point, this ghost story of Urokenjima was born. This is the legend of Urokenjima's witch. That's why, when we talk about a witch on this island, we're referring to the master of that vast and savage forest. Come to think of it, when I stayed at this mansion as a little kid, during those eerie nights when the wind and rain pounded on the windows, I remember being terrified by a story of the forest witch, who roamed around searching for human sacrifices. So, Beatrice, huh? When George mentioned it, I searched my memory and was sure I recalled hearing a name like that when I was little. I see. Still, I totally forgot that the witch in that legend had an elegant name like Beatrice. So did grandfather go out of his way to have a portrait made just because we grandchildren didn't believe the story? She's the witch from grandfather's delusions. Ever since he had this picture hanged, he's been having a harder and harder time telling the difference between truth and fantasy. To us, she's just a witch that exists in grandfather's mind, but to him, she is a being that exists on this island. Exists. He says that he had that painting made because the rest of us would be incapable of understanding otherwise. The whole thing's creepy as hell. My lady, this portrait is precious to the master. I beg of you, do not say such things in front of him. I know. Even if you didn't tell me, I'd never do something like that. Jessica glanced at the portrait with an irritated gaze before turning away. Let's go. We're making everyone wait in the dining room. Ooh, I'm hungry. Only a small portion of this island was controlled by the Ushiromita family. All of the lawless remainder was the domain of the witch Beatrice. You might even call her the true ruler of Urokenjima. I felt a faint revival of that unsettling sense of misfortune, which I'd felt when I learned of the tutelary god's shrine being struck by lightning. And I remember that Kumasawa tried to tell an ominous story about Urokenjima before Jessica stopped her. I don't know what she was planning to tell us about this island, but I do know one thing. It isn't the Ushiromita family that rules Urokenjima. It's the witch Beatrice. That's right. After all, this is the witch's island. Valor. Ooh, you're slow. When I looked around, everyone was already heading towards the dining room. I hurriedly chased after them. If it's not totally obvious to anyone new to Umineko, Beatrice is going to be pretty important. We walked up the huge double doors that led to the dining room. Genji knocked. I have brought the children. Please pardon the intrusion. The doors were opened and we were invited inside. The dining room, which looked exactly like you'd imagine a rich person's dining room to be, had a super long table that was obviously positioned with no purpose other than to make the guests conscious of their rank. Our parents were already sitting in accordance with our ordering. You're late, brats. Hurry up and take a seat. The old bastard pressed us to sit. The only gaps in that group of people were the spots we were supposed to sit, which only made us feel our tardiness all the more. Yeah, Beatrice is, she's definitely what I think of when I think of the One They Cry series. I'm personally more of an Umineko fan than a Higurashi one. I feel like the Umineko fans are less common, but they're a lot more... I don't want to say obsessed, I'm going to say dedicated. Because Umineko, I'm going to be frank, takes a lot more effort to like get into and understand than Higurashi. I mentioned this before, but Higurashi is much more of horror leaning, and Umineko is much more mystery. Both have aspects of both. But the Umineko mystery is solvable, while Higurashi is more about just showing you plot twists as it goes on. Though there is some solvability to it too. Also, hi. The seat at the head table, called the Incipience chair, was for the most highly ranked, reserved for grandfather. It was still empty. He probably wanted to show up last for dramatic effect. From the perspective of someone facing the Incipience chair head-on, the seating order went from left to right, with the lower-ranking seats progressing in rows of two further away from it. So the left-hand side of the first row, closest to the Incipience chair, was where Uncle Kraus should have sat. since he was the second highest in rank. It looked like he hadn't arrived yet, so that seat was empty. Across from his chair, on the right side of the first row, sat the eldest daughter of the family, Aunt Ava, who was the third highest in rank. The left-hand side of the second row was for the fourth highest in rank. There sat my damned bad, Rudolph, the third of the siblings. Across from him, on the right side of the second row, sat Aunt Rosa, the youngest sibling. At this point, you might expect their husbands and wives to come next. But nope, the left-hand seat in the third row, rank number 6, belonged to Jessica. Opposite her was George. I sat next to Jessica, and Mari sat across from me. Then, finally next to me on the left-hand side of the fifth row, sat Aunt Natsuhi, the 10th highest in rank. Opposite her was Uncle Hideyoshi. Next to Aunt Natsuhi, in the 6th row and the final seat on the left-hand side, sat Kirie. The seat opposite to Kirie was empty, even though silverware had been set there and everything. According to this ranking system, that spot was where Aunt Rosa's husband should be sitting. Even though he wasn't supposed to be coming, his place was made up. Normally, ranking systems of this sort give spouses equal positions as their partners, but the Ushimura family system was unique. Maybe it's a remnant of male chauvinism. If you start with the assumption that a woman's womb is just something to be borrowed, then the children of direct descent would come first, directly followed by the grandchildren. In other words, spouses have no blood ties and are therefore placed at the end of the line. It's terrible, but by this system, my grandmother would still be ranked lower than me if she were still alive. Ouch. It's really bad. In their youth, they obey their father. After they get married, their husband. After aging, their children. That's the old saying. Women have no home in any realm. Long ago, when I was still incapable of figuring all this out, I thought it was so great that we could all chat in our little groups. Adult siblings with adult siblings, and cousins with cousins. However, now that I can re-examine the seating order after growing up a bit, it stirs up some very complicated feelings in me. Aunt Natsuhi, who's married to the eldest son and was the de facto number 2 in managing this family, sat to my right, which meant that she was 2 steps lower than me in the ranking order. It was hard to imagine what might be going inside her heart. That's why I made a small apologetic gesture towards her before sitting down. "How nice to see you, Battler. You've grown quite tall, haven't you?" "Oh, yep. 6 long years of eating well, sampling various cuisines, and deriving sustenance from Mother Earth's bountiful gifts. Hard work, but I pulled through." "Growing just like a boy, I see. How tall are you now?" "I guess about 180 centimeters? Not Natsuhi, that's where you're supposed to say. It sounds like all you did was eat." "Huh? Oh, I'm sorry." After a short pause, she did laugh with me, but it seemed she couldn't quite figure out what she was supposed to be laughing at. "This woman is Aunt Natsuhi. She's the wife of the eldest son of the family, meaning she is my father's older brother's wife. Is it simpler if I just call her Jessica's mother? It really is." Like I said, once Krause is introduced, I'm going to kind of go over this and do a review and go about it in more simple terms. Maybe we'll make a chart and paint or something, but I think the character chart game is pretty good. It feels bad to say it like this, but while I didn't exactly dislike her, I didn't particularly like her either. She hardly ever spoke with us kids, and all my memories of her involve her talking to the adults about complicated things with a scary look on her face. In fact, since we hardly ever exchange words, I spent a long time trying to figure out how I should approach her, though my efforts seem to have ended in failure. I should clarify, Umineko is a story where the adults matter just as much as the children, just as much as the younger characters. So it really is going to be important, like memorizing all these connections here. The silverware sat neatly on the table, but the meal itself hadn't been brought in yet. As a general rule, you couldn't start a meal until the person sitting at the head of the table arrived. So as long as grandfather didn't come, lunch would be put on hold indefinitely. Not even the appetizers would arrive. Simply put, the silence in this room was caused by our parents enduring their hunger while they waited for grandfather to arrive. However, the grandfather from my memories would always show up on time to meals like this. He was the kind of person who would never be so late that it kept everyone waiting, especially after the entire group had arrived. Grandfather's pretty late. As far as I can remember, he was always strict about time. Well, that might have been true 6 years ago, but it hasn't been that way lately. In fact, he's off in his own little world so often that he doesn't even show up at family meals. Still, I figured he'd at least come down today. Then again, I feel a lot more relaxed and happy without him. "Jessica." When her mother scolded her, Jessica stuck her tongue out and looked away. No way around it. Might as well wait till our host arrives. When I glanced at the clock, I saw that it was almost 12:20. Ushimura Kinzo, the aged family head of the Ushimura head family. This man could be seen in his study. The clock had already passed noon, but he didn't even attempt to rise from his seat. With his spectacles on, he built up a growing pile of books with elaborate bindings, which he then read intently. You couldn't really say that he was having too much fun to stop. Rather, he filled the room with a sense of impatience, or perhaps a sense of impending danger, as though every second wasted was a tragedy. In the sealed room, a dense dust danced through the air, which was thick with a stench of chemicals that exuded a midst of suspicious odors. Those odors were somehow sweet and heavy. If anyone with a normal nose came in here, the first thing they'd do would be to open a window and ventilate the room. The knocking against the study door had been going on for a while. The voice calling "Father" sometimes mingled with the knocks. As Kenzo heaved a deep sigh, he snapped shut the old book in his hands and slammed it on the table. Then he yelled at Kraus, who was still knocking at the door. "Silence! Enough with that racket, you fool! Who told you the door would be opened if you but knocked? I'll crucify the imbecile. Do you wish to suffer the same fate?" "Father, this is the day of the family conference, which happens only once a year, is it not? Everyone's gathered down below. Please come out." Kraus called out to his father through the door. Kenzo always shut himself up in the study, hating it when nearly anyone, even his family, entered the room. For that reason, Kraus had no choice but to call to him from the corridor like this. "Molest me not. Just who is this everyone of which you speak?" "Do you mean the fools try to drag me out of here? Then kill them all. Tear them apart, use their bodies for firewood, and feed them into the witch's earth. Put a pot in that hearth to boil the wormwood. Where's the imbeciles who try to lure me out of here to drink the broth of the apocalypse? Holy shit." "I will soak their dregs in liquor. Ah, where is Genji? Call for Genji. Have my demonic absinthe prepared. The whispering of the green fairy reaches me no longer. Ah, where is Genji? Bring him here." On the other side of the door, Kraus, Nanjo, and Genji kept waiting for the master of the house, who stubbornly refused to come out. Looks like he hates me to the core. My voice doesn't reach him anymore. Kraus shrugged as though saying, "It's no use," and smiled bitterly. From the beginning, he hadn't really expected his father to respond to his calls. However, since it was the duty of the eldest son, he had tried as a formality. "Kenzo, your sons, daughters, and grandchildren have come to see you, have they not? Could you just let them see your face, if only for a short while?" "Shut up. Be silent. You dared to admonish me, Nanjo? I never told anyone to get you. I told them to get Genji. Now call for him immediately. Time is short and the apostles are already readying their trumpets, so why can't you foolish sheep understand?" Kenzo slammed an old heavy book against the table over and over. That racket clearly expressed his great displeasure. Yeah, great displeasure, sure. Kenzo put his spectacles down and flew up from his chair. He spread his arms wide open as if listening to a packed opera house, as if appealing to someone, and yelled, "Why? Why is there always something in my way? I would throw it all away. I would offer up everything. There is only one thing I ask in repayment. Oh, Beatrice, if I could see your smile but one more time, I would plunder the smiles of the earth and offer them all up to you. Oh, commanders of the legions of locusts, reap the smiles of the earth." Everything is filthy. Everything is irksome. Why must I suffer this impediment on this most precious of days? Call for Genji. I have no idea what he's yelling about. He's probably lost his mind by now. Kraus, isn't it a bit harsh to say such a thing of your own father? My father is already dead. There's nothing here but a phantom of what father once was. At any rate, as long as he has no intention of coming out, there's nothing we can do. Kenzo. Choking coughs continued to pour from the study. I'm going back downstairs. It would be a waste to let the fruits of Goda's prize cooking talent get any colder. It's one of the few things our relatives can look forward to when they come to this house. Kraus spun around. He looked at his watch, mumbling and acting as though he had wasted time doing something he knew would be in vain. Genji, father's calling for you. Keep him company. Certainly. Dr. Nanjo, let's go eat. If we stay here any longer, this sweet stench will ruin our sense of taste. Without waiting for Nanjo, Kraus went downstairs. Genji urged Nanjo to go and eat. Nanjo glanced between the study door and Kraus's back as the latter disappeared down the stairs, then let out a deep sigh. Sorry, Genji, but please allow me to leave this in your hands. Yes, please leave it to me. Do what you can to avoid giving him alcohol. That's a habit that's far too difficult to break. Is Genji not here yet? Who dares keep Genji from coming? Ah, where's Genji? Call for Genji. Please, allow me to handle the situation here. He's gotta go change his diaper. Very well. Forgive me. Nanjo bowed slightly and descended the stairs. Genji watched him leave, then knocked on the study door. Master, it is Genji. Genji, why have you kept me waiting so long? You're alone, I trust? Correct. I'm alone. Kenzo returned to his seat in the study and pressed an old-fashioned switch on the table. Because of course he has a button to open the door. After a small delay, the heavy sound of the door unlocking could be heard. Kenzo was convinced that the family wanted to make a mess of his study. Or perhaps someone had once opened the window for some air and ended up scattering things that to him were important research materials, leaving him in a terrible mood. Kenzo had outfitted his room with a formidable lock, preventing anyone from entering without his permission, and therefore sealing himself in a jail of his own making. Gotta drink my coffee. Kenzo's such a fun character. Every scene with him is always interesting. Genji, whom he trusted the most, was relatively free to enter the room, but even that didn't always hold. If Kenzo was in a bad mood, even Genji wouldn't even be able to enter. Anyone else would be limited to holding a conversation through the door, unable even to see Kenzo's face. And most of the time, what they got could hardly be called a conversation. However, this didn't trouble the rest of the family much. After all, it just wasn't worth the effort to disturb this aging family head, who was impossible to please and always stayed shut away, immersed in his research. Taking advantage of his refusal to leave his room, they supported his isolation, putting his care entirely into the hands of the servants. Genji, my usual. I'm busy. Yes, sir. Genji headed to a corner of the study. There, suspicious-looking bottles boasting venomous colors were on display. They were actually liquor, but considering the shady atmosphere of this room, one might easily suspect them of being some ghastly poison. Inside the study, the mysterious collection of books gathered by Kenzo had grown into a mountain. They were bizarre, ancient, or banned books, all of them either forbidden, cursed, or sealed. But if you tried to call them old books, Kenzo would fly into a rage and say, "Call them grimoires." There were also many mysterious objects that presumably held some meaning with regards to black magic, like candles suspiciously melted and molded into strange shapes. The constellations drawn on a certain celestial globe contained quite a few shapes that would draw puzzled looks from anyone familiar with today's night sky. The curiously strewn about books contained many illustrations, all of them of a religious or mysterious nature, including some depicting demonically grotesque subjects or bizarre diagrams of various magic circles. And above all, a sweet poisonous smell filled the room, profoundly assaulting the eyes and noses of those who entered for the first time. Eventually, it must surely make a person go numb and lose their grip on reality. Inside that study, Genji prepared Kenzo's usual drink with a well-trained hand. No one would even think of drinking such an ominous, dark green liquid in that complex and ornate glass, unless someone first told him it was alcohol. He poured a little into the glass. Then he placed a cube of sugar in a strangely shaped spoon and poured water from a pitcher over it. Strangely, when the transparent water was poured, the dark green liquid turned a cloudy white. It was a strange optical illusion, as though the water had caused a chemical reaction and made the drink become even more unrecognizable as liquor. Then, Genji added original flavors Kenzo loved, fine-tuning its taste. There was no recipe. Its success was measured only by Kenzo's mood swings when he drank it, and it had taken Genji many decades to learn how to do it right. Genji placed the glass on a tray and walked over to Kenzo. By this time, Kenzo was gazing out the window. "Here, master." "Thank you." Kenzo had regained his composure and was now unrecognizable as the shouting, screaming, yelling man from a few moments ago. Looking at this man from behind as he tilted his glass and gazed down at the scenery beyond the window, he projected a sense of dignity and intelligence. To allow Kenzo to set his glass down at any time, Genji motionally silhouetted behind Kenzo and to his left, as though he were a living sideboard. Then, without averting his eyes from the window, Kenzo held out his glass. There was only a mouthful remaining. It was not a gesture intended to set it upon the tray, but a motion to hand the glass over to Genji. "Drink, my friend. Your words are too kind for me. No need for ceremony between us. Drink, my friend." "Thank you." Genji respectfully received the glass and inclined it a little to taste its contents. After that, he gulped it down. "I attempted to imitate your concoction, but no matter how I try, I cannot replicate the taste. The way you make it is pure relish. Thank you very much. It is the fruit of your guidance, master." Kenzo smiled as a loyal subject who refused to put aside rank even when asked to. However, he was not making fun of him. His smile was relaxed, as though chuckling at a close friend's old, unshakable habit. "We have grown old together. I I stopped counting the years long ago. It is entirely thanks to you, Master, that I have been able to live like this until today. Kinzo gave a faint smile, as if to say he didn't need any flattery. Until now, you served me exceedingly well. My sons called me eccentric. Their servants that were once many have all quit in fear of me. Only you serve me even now. Your words are more than I deserve. My life will not last much longer. My sons are vultures, lazily waiting for my inheritance to fall into their hands. Cross is a fool who squanders money like water, who throws away 2 gold coins to obtain 1. And then he has the gall to claim that he's earned money. Ava's a slave to money, who thinks of me as a mere chicken. When I die, she plans to use my bones to make a broth. That dunce Rudolph just wants to fool around with women. Rosa bore the baby of a man who came from nowhere and about whom we know nothing. Jessica is incompetent and uneducated. George has none of what it takes to be a man. Battler's a fool who threw away the honor of the Ushimura family. And Maria is obscene to the eye. Why is the Ushimura blood so incompetent? Is there no one worthy to inherit the glory I built? Of course, I know this is part of Beatrice's curse, I know it. Ah, you golden witch, are you trying to take revenge against me in this way? If you want to hate me, then do so. If you want to run away, then run. I won't let you go. I won't let you go, won't let you go, won't let you go. You belong to me. You must always be in my arms. For all my life. You must stay in my birdcage for all eternity, whispering only to me. Beatrice. Why won't you smile back at me? Oh, Beatrice. Oh. A lot of Kinzo cutscenes end like this. He just fills up like an entire page. After howling, Kinzo choked once again. Genji set the train glass down and rubbed his master's back. Genji's facial expression did not change. He's used to this. It was always like this. Thank you, my friend. When his seemingly deranged fit subsided, Kinzo regained his composure once again. It was like seeing 2 different people, a wild Kinzo and a composed Kinzo, living together inside one body. And so, I have decided. I cannot bear to spend my dimmed remaining years procrastinating like this. If I have one final coin to bet, then I choose to abandon it to the whims of the demon's roulette. Power of magic is always determined by the risk of the gamble. Like visiting a shrine at the hour of the ox in ancient Japanese sorcery to nail a cursed doll to a tree. Gosun Gosun. Magical power is produced specifically because of the risk that it will be seen within the 7 days the curse takes. The greater the risk, the stronger the magic power will be. He's not spouting bullshit here, you should actually remember what he's saying, this is kind of important. Many miracles that happen in myth might be called the crystallization of shocking magic power, with a low probability of occurrence and astronomical risk. That Moses parted the waters of the sea was not a miracle of God. The risk of that desperate situation, cornered by soldiers on the Red Sea shores, weighed upon the scales of slaughter and gave birth to that miraculous magic power. If the same thing occurred again on the same scale, the sea would surely fail to part. After all, Moses was able to magnificently summon a miracle, engraved on but one of the countless innumerable results on the roulette of those with power. This is the force that can triumph over astronomical odds. Indeed, good fortune that can grasp miracles is magical power itself. To obtain this mighty power, one must face the risk of despair. Those who possess no magical power may call that desperation rather than a bet. However, people who truly do possess magic power can grasp hold of that miracle and make the enigma come into being. And if that power exists within me, I'll seize that miracle. I'll have a chance at making the wish I devoted my life towards come true. Kinzo looked up to the sky outside the window. He spread his arms as if appealing to someone up in the skies. If only I were capable of grasping that miracle. Oh, Beatrice, Beatrice, show me your lovely smile once more. No matter how much time passes, your face does not vanish. I just want to see your smile, that is all. I'll return everything you granted me. I'll return all the glory I've gained since that day. I don't need fortune, prestige, or gold. I'll return everything you gave me. I just want to see your smile. I beg you, Beatrice. Oh. His nonsensical yells became a scream, and then a wail. Kinzo slumped to the floor, tearing at it with both hands. Genji had no choice but to wordlessly watch over his master's limitations. That's 3 times he just went off on a tangent. Okay, so let's take a quick pause to just go over the characters. Just to make sure everyone's up to speed. We can go over this whenever we need to. Oh, I still didn't put Kraus in. Okay, I'll wait just a minute then. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the family head's health is not at its best. He seemed extremely sad to not be able to share lunch with you all. Yeah, as if. Now that you've gathered for this event that occurs but once a year. Goda, let the lunch begin. Certainly, I shall begin today's luncheon. Dr. Nanjo, is father's condition really that bad? Couldn't he have at least let us see his face? It's more a problem of mood than a physical condition, and for that, there's no medicine I can prescribe. Antidepressants? I don't know, tranquilizers? Something, surely. Yeah, we talking about his mood again. You've got to be kidding me. We took time out of our schedules during this damn busy autumn season just to come to find out how he's doing. And now he's... then you should be happy, Rudolph. You now know how he's doing. Or what? Would you rather take my place and try to persuade our ill-humoured father to come join us? ASAP. Afternoon. Are you kidding? Rudolph shrugged. Apparently, though Rudolph was willing to be indignant at how self-centered his family was, he wasn't particularly disappointed to be spared a face-to-face meeting. Does it seem like his mood will improve before dinner, Kraus? I have no idea. If you want to know that, you should ask him directly. Although I think his mood will improve faster if we don't bother him. Genji's the only one who can get grandfather out of a funk. It's pretty pathetic, though, making the servants deal with your own parents' bad mood. Jessica, don't speak out of turn. She'd planned for her complaint to be only heard by her cousins, but it had reached even Krause's ears. Scolded, Jessica scowled and turned away, sulking. If he's as cranky as they make him sound, he can't be that terribly sick, right? I mean, they're saying he's in a bad mood. Not that he's got no energy, which at least proves he's got his wits about him. It's because grandfather has especially strong willpower. However, that doesn't necessarily mean his body will be able to keep up. Since last year, they keep saying that he has 3 months left. If the initial diagnosis was correct, grandfather has been prolonging his life by willpower alone. Nice bot thing here. Let's just get rid of that. Homie, add me on Discord. Hold on a second here. There we go. Sorry, homie. It's right for us to worry about him. Once started with the family had ceased to empty. Yeah, you're right. If that bot's gonna like suck up to you and say, hey, I like your content, let's be friends, they could at least follow. At the very goddamn least. It's not even convincing, right? And no one uses emojis like that. No one. Once started with the family had seat still empty. The man who should be sitting there had already grown old, and the brilliant glory which had rebuilt the Ushida family in the span of a single lifetime was being forgotten. Even though they were beginning the meal with that seat still empty, no one felt like it was that odd anymore. Oh, okay. You never know what they're going to do when there's a pause. Entire hour later. We are now at 1:30. The Ushimada Family Conference was held once every year on the first weekend of October. If a normal family were to hold a so-called family conference, you'd expect it to be nothing more than a reunion of rarely seen relatives who greet each other around buckets of sushi or something. However, part of the family's great fortune had been lent out to grandfather's children, and no one in this family was considered an adult until they had met with success in business. So this meeting literally was a conference. How much of the fortune was invested, what sort of business was conducted, how much profit was earned. As a result, how much of the fortune borrowed from the main family could be repaid. Or possibly, how much more would be borrowed for future business ventures. What lessons had they learned, and what could they learn from their mistakes? It seems that topics like these were discussed very seriously in the past. My dad said it was like lying on a bed of nails. Apparently, it used to be a very serious family meeting, where people were bathed in scornful and angry voices, and some even got slapped despite their age. However, that had become a thing of the past. Now, with everyone pursuing their own business ventures and achieving success, it was becoming more of a normal yearly get-together. Even so, telling grandfather about recent events was extremely stressful. So while it was nothing more than a simple get-together for us grandchildren, it was still a real stomachache for our parents. The absence of the man who was the source of all this trouble, regardless of the reason, probably made today's lunch taste much more delicious. The phrase, "while the demon is not around, everyone can relax," comes to mind. Anyway, let's introduce Jessica's father, whose face I haven't seen for 6 years. The man sitting to my father's left is his older brother, and Jessica's father, Uncle Kraus. This name sure is easy to read. Kraus. Now that we've gotten used to this string of weird names, our perspective is totally skewed, so Kraus doesn't actually seem that bad. It even starts to sound kinda cool. Just like with Aunt Natsuhi, I didn't have many memories of speaking with Uncle Kraus. He had never been one to chat to children, and I felt like he was always talking with the adults, just like Aunt Natsuhi. According to my father's gossip, he was a spiteful and violent man. If what he said is true, Uncle Kraus used to be very domineering from his position as the oldest sibling, and was despised by all the other siblings. Though despite that, those siblings all seemed to be chatting happily together. Oh well, even if the relationship was bad when they were children, Sometimes when people grow up and live apart from each other, their relationships change. That's probably what this was. After all, they all had children of about the same age. By sharing the same family environment, they probably profited by exchanging opinions. Maybe because of that, a short while ago, the circle of parents began to discuss the exams Jessica and I would be taking. Jessica, in order to escape questions about exams from my father on her left, purposely faced right while firing off a rapid series of comments, not giving him any chance to get a word in. Moving on, let's look at the end opposite from Krauss and the others. In the very last seat of the table, an old gentleman with a sturdy physique sat facing Kyrie. This was my first time meeting him. I had only just been introduced to him, but it seems he's grandfather's personal doctor, a man called Nanjo. I heard he used to own a huge clinic on the nearby island of Nijima, but he turned it over to his son and began living a life of leisure in his old age. He had known grandfather since the very beginning, when the mansion was first constructed on this island, and had built up a relationship over several decades. I thought at first that the two of them might have gotten to know each other through grandfather's suspicious hobbies, but it seems he was actually grandfather's chess partner. I see. That kind of hobby seems very like our grandfather, what with his love of all things Western. Nanjo's probably the only person who could enter Rakenjima despite being neither a family member nor a servant. He looked like a calm old gentleman as he listened to the discussion between Kyrie and the other women who sat near to him. Considering how long he stayed by the side of her short-tempered grandfather, his generous heart was probably nothing to laugh at. Still, even if he was a family doctor, having anyone outside the Ushimura family attend the family conference was a little odd. It made me think that grandfather's condition might have worsened so much it'd be a major topic of discussion at today's conference. After all, George said something like that just a second ago. Something about how we've been getting continuous reports since around last year that grandfather didn't have long left to live. It's nasty to think about it, but consider how rich grandfather is. At the time of his death, his wealth will suddenly be released, probably along with a fair share of our parents' stomach acid, and it'll lead to ulcers for everyone. After all, this sort of thing just gets messier when there's more wealth to be divided. There's a good chance they'll be talking about stuff like that at the family conference. Still, it's not like it's got anything to do with us kids. Finally, even though he hasn't shown up, let me introduce our grandfather. The person who should be sitting in that inception's chair is Ushimura Kinzo. It really sucks. Everyone else in the family has these weird names, but he's got this perfectly normal one himself. If only his name were in Kinzo, but he let us call him Goldsmith or something, I'd totally freak out. As you can probably guess by now, he's a frightening person with an extremely short temper. I'm one of his grandchildren, not a son, and I haven't seen him since elementary school. Thanks to that, I have no memory of being beaten myself, but our parents were apparently raised with an iron fist. That earlier conversation between my dad and Uncle Kraus, about who should go convince grandfather to come down, seems pretty darn funny once you know their background. Okay, we'll go through this, then I'll review the characters for us. You can't really tell grandfather's story without covering that pivotal event back before the Showa era, 1926 to 1989. Until the Meiji, 1868 to 1912, and Taisho eras, 1912 to 1926, I don't know any of these numbers even roughly or the order without someone being there to tell me, so I'm glad it goes over this. The Ushimura family was great and prosperous. They owned several spinning mills, making them rich enough to just double over laughing every day as the money kept rolling in. Incidentally, grandfather was a member of a branch family and had pretty much nothing to do with the main family. Not only was he way down the list of people who can inherit the headship, but he had hardly any contact with the glamorous main family. However, during the Great Kanto earthquake in the year Taisho 12, 1923, the mansion owned by the Ushimura family in Odawara was flattened. The spinning mills in Tokyo were all burned down in a huge fire, and the Ushimura family lost most of its wealth and family members in an instant. So once they started trying to figure out who the successor to the Ushimura family should be, they apparently found no one remaining except Kinzo and his branch family. In Kinzo's latter reminiscences, he referred to this as good fortune so great that it overturned fate. With that, grandfather's boring, everyday life did a 180. He was entrusted with reviving the dying Ushimura family, which had lost nearly all of its wealth. However, just because he had been entrusted with this task didn't mean he could accomplish it. Apparently, those around him weren't really expecting much. However, this is when grandfather began displaying his extraordinary talent and good luck. Grandfather used all the family's remaining wealth, as well as everything from the hair on his head to his toenails, as collateral in order to borrow a massive amount of money. Once he'd built up a gigantic war chest, he immediately invested in businesses. It was like someone tumbling down a hill on a bike without any brakes, and then jumping onto a neighboring bike, and then another one, just like some crazy street performance. I'll bet everyone thought grandfather had no business ability whatsoever. However, after several miracles and turns of good luck, with coincidences piling up and every chance taken advantage of, he was suddenly in control of powerful connections with the occupying forces. At that time, MacArthur and the GHQ were the ultimate authority in Japan. Grandfather, in a twinkle of an eye, began succeeding in business under the protection of the occupying forces, quickly becoming very rich. By this point, it's probably safe to say that information, not luck, saved the day. He must have made some seriously deep connections with the occupying forces. Grandfather knew beforehand about emergency demands that would be made for the Korean War. No, it was more than that. He must have predicted those emergency demands from the very beginning, when he started investing his money. The history books make it sound like all of Japan made a large profit off of the emergency demands during the Korean War, but that isn't actually true. Only a very limited number of the super rich played the money game and made an easy profit. Most of the citizens remained poor. In other words, Grandfather was a member of this extremely lucky group of winners. I'm pretty sure that all this happened during the year Showa 25, 1950, or so. The Great Kanto earthquake happened in Taisha 13, 1924, so that means Grandfather was able to revive the near-dead Ushimura family in only about 20 years to a level higher than it had ever been before. With that, you'd think he'd revive the main family in Odawara, but for some reason he went and did something as crazy as buying an entire small island in the Izu archipelago. Buying an entire island is not something that you can ordinarily do today. However, Grandfather was clever. He contacted the GHQ and applied for the establishment of a marine resource base. He acquired this island as a business property, then tossed that project aside and claimed it as his own plot of land. After the war, there were prevention measures against food shortages, and having the sponsorship of the GHQ meant that nobody could oppose him. From what I've heard, the Tokyo metropolis of that day offered this land to him practically for free. Later, Tokyo made difficulties by telling Kinzo to return the land, but the pushy GHQ intervened. Anyway, it seems under-the-table bribes did their work well. In the end, the city gave up in frustration. Grandfather, with considerable skill and good luck, managed to weather the stormy seas of that period, obtaining a vast fortune and his own island. Of course, it probably wasn't all luck. He was obsessed with all things Western, which helped him cultivate his English skills. He was able to use this to his advantage and sink his teeth into the GHQ. A mansion was built on the island soon after. This mansion, in fact, Grandfather, with his love of the Western style, made this once uninhabited island a canvas upon which he could realize his dreams to his heart's content. He now had the Western mansion of his dreams, overflowing with emotion and atmosphere, and a beautiful garden featuring all sorts of roses. And he had a private beach where nobody other than himself would ever be permitted to leave a footprint. This would be a dream come true for any boy. After that, he made good use of his huge fortune, becoming a large stockholder in the extremely stable iron and steel industry, and he was able to live an easy and comfortable life, just using the dividends. Well, he's just that incredible. This kind of person usually has the ability to foresee and predict the future, or at least that's how they're portrayed after the fact. But Grandfather denies all of that, repeatedly saying that he was simply blessed with extraordinary luck. Anyway, even a lord like that can't help but grow increasingly eccentric when locked up on an island, while his dreams are made real. Everyone knows that he's had a Western obsession from the start, but none of our parents really know when his bizarre black magic hobby began. Did his love of black magic begin way back when he became fascinated with everything Western? Or did his miraculous touch of good luck while reviving his family cause him to feel a mysterious power in himself? At some point, Grandfather began to make the research of black magic his life's work. He filled his study up with suspicious books, chemicals, and magical items as he became increasingly bizarre. From what I've heard, those around him warmly, maybe, watched over him, figuring that someone who had achieved success in life had a right to do as he pleased, but there's no way that's true. They were probably just creeped out, thinking, that's disgusting, I don't want to get involved. Anyway, that agitated period was an age of big gambles with both opportunities and risks. Let's say Grandfather was born in this time period. He would have had no opportunities and would have probably advanced like a chess piece from mandatory education to college at a leisurely pace, never becoming more than an average salaryman. If that happened, he'd probably have sat somewhere, happily talking behind his boss's back. No, not in a fancy dining hall like this. More like at a table in some bar. Then again, I'll bet this family conference would be a whole lot more relaxing if that were the case. Okay, so that's Kinzo's backstory. You don't need to, remember all the war details and stuff. Just, a long time ago, the family was in dire straits, he revived it, and essentially remade it from nothing. So, let's have a quick pause to go over all the characters, so everyone can actually remember them. So, we have Kinzo. Kinzo is the head of the family. I'll read these two. The aged head of the Ushimura family, even though it has been announced that he has a few months left to live, he is brimming with energy. Though he amassed a vast fortune in the past, he never made any announcements regarding the inheritance, which worries his children. He is strongly influenced by the West and is a rabid fan of the occult. His studies packed with mysterious grimoires. Grouse. Kinzo's first child. As the oldest of the 4 siblings, he leads the family conference. However, the other siblings think that he's trying to get the inheritance for himself, and this further strains the tensions between them. He's a real estate investor and has put a lot of money into the development of the resort. However, his results have been harshly criticized. And Nanjo. Kinzo's attending physician and longtime friend. He once ran a hospital in Nijima, but he turned over to his son and now enjoys his old age in peace. Now that Kinzo's constant suspicion has raised extraordinary heights, Nanjo is one of the very few people he trusts. Thanks to Nanjo's big-hearted nature, he's been able to continue his friendship with Kinzo, despite the latter's tendency to fly into a rage at the slightest provocation. We didn't do Shannon yet. A young but experienced servant. She's normally calm and performs her job efficiently, but she messes up when she gets nervous. Furthermore, Shannon is nothing more than a pseudonym that she uses when on duty, not her real name. We haven't seen this yet. Genji, the leader of the servants who work for the Ushimura family. He's served Kinzo longer than any other, and is the person most trusted by that old man. Since he serves Kinzo directly, Kraus and Natsu think of him as being a spy for Kinzo. Usopp, Cannon, and Goda, and everyone else. Okay. Sometimes these get updated, by the way. You can also switch between the portraits here. Let's run through these real quick. In fact, yeah, let's go through these as we go through the characters. So, we have Kinzo, Grandpa, crazy black magic man, obsessed with Beatrice, whatever that really means. We have Kinzo's 4 children. So Kraus, Natsuhi, and Jessica live on the island with Kinzo. If memory serves right, Jessica goes to school on a boat on the mainland every day when she's doing school. But these 4 live on the island. Everyone else here in the family's marked with red lines if that's not clear, does not live on the island. So, all of his actual children are here on the left, and their spouses are here, and it's Kinzo's grandchildren, the cousins as they're called. So you have the second, married to Hideyoshi. These 2 are George's parents. George is kind of like he's got the most diligent upbringing, basically. He's the oldest out of the 4 as well. I think Jessica's second youngest, right? I think she's younger than Battler by a bit. I'm gonna say that's the case. Rudolph here, 3rd child. Battler's mother died. Kyrie is his mother-in-law. So Rudolph remarried. Yeah, as it says here, 2nd wife. I think mother's name was Asumo. She'll get mentioned sometimes. We don't know who Maria's father is, so this spot is just missing. So, Rosa is the 4th child and is currently single, I guess. I don't think they were ever married. And here's the 5 servants. So Genji is, well, I don't know if he's the oldest here with Kumasawa here, but he's been Kinzo's friend for a long time. Nanjo is kind of similar, he's not a servant, but you can kind of think of these 3 as their own group. You know, you got Kinzo, then you have these 2 people that he actually trusts, and no one else he really lets in. We have Shannon, we have Cannon, we have Goda, and we have Kumasawa. Goda's the newest here, everyone else has been around for a while. Kumasawa's been around for a long time. It said Shannon's been here for 10 years? And I think it said Cannon's only been here for 2 years. So I think that essentially goes over everything. That's just a quick recap. Nothing super thorough, but if you're ever confused, just take a look at these connections. It's quite clear. It goes in order of age from Kinzo here. Grandma's not on here at all, funny enough. So it should be pretty evident. And then the servants, you just have to kind of remember yourself. But all these characters matter, some more, some less than others, but do try to remember them. I think it's done a good job of fleshing most of them out so far. The parents will probably be a bit hard to tell apart and remember who's part of the actual family who married into it. That takes a bit to learn. I know that from experience, but just do your best, basically. Let me go grab coffee and water again. I will be right back. Break time. Okay. Yeah, episode 1 kind of starts off with a lot of setup. It kind of has to, like, introduce the characters to you. Things obviously get smooth from this point on. Just replug my mic real quick. Hello. Oh. Such a cuddle bug, aren't you? Nyx has been so desperate for attention recently. Every time I wake up, she'll like run around my legs and cry as loud as she can until I pick her up and give her cuddles for a minute or two. It didn't used to be like this. Back when she first came to the house, she wouldn't come out from under the bed for like 2 weeks. I'd actually grab her and force her out into the rest of the house so she'd get used to everything. Alright. Okay, that's enough about the old geezer. More importantly, let's talk about this incredible lunch. Who cares? Let's talk about Xenogears. I'm already convinced by that sashimi salad oh, I need to switch the art back to the good art, sorry. I'm already convinced by that sashimi salad appetizer. Yoda's an excellent chef. Plus, these fish were caught in the adjacent seas, weren't they? They're totally different from the sashimi you get at the supermarket. Hey, quit it, Battler. Your upbringing will be exposed. Everyone let out a big laugh. Damn it, you say that even though you love those cheap pubs. I've been at many unusual places because of work, but this stands right up there with the best of them. I'd be willing to bet Goda used to be pretty well known in those circles. Well, I don't know the details, but stuff got complicated at the long-standing hotel he used to work at. What with them opening a new establishment with the same name and breaking into factions or whatever it was. In the middle of all that, he was apparently forced to retire. At that time, Mom just happened to be sending out job offers for a servant. As Goda removed the empty plates, he began to recount his own bumpy past without losing his smile. The world is a difficult place. However, thanks to the madam, I was given a chance to display my skills as a chef once again, this time for the Ushiguna family. Now I don't know what would make Umineko truly perfect. Enlighten me. Although I enjoy experiencing the smiles of a larger number of people, I also find it quite entertaining to perform more delicate work that can please the limited number of those who have employed me. Giving everyone the same name and portrait. I think there's a mod or something that gives everyone Goda name and portrait. Goda, for stupid reasons, is kind of like considered a meme character. I'm not gonna say why yet. There isn't really a strong reason for it. I guess I can say Goda's probably like the least important character out of the entire cast here. He barely matters. So some people like to joke and say that Goda is the culprit behind everything, which is totally unfounded. I'm just gonna come out and say that much. It's totally unfounded. It's a meme. So people like dress Goda up as like a really fancy genius of a man. Goda respectfully bowed his head towards Aunt Natsuhi. That's because you were the most talented of the applicants. The decision was purely objective, not based on personal feelings, so there's no need to thank me. Dang, why does Aunt Natsuhi always have to sound so indifferent? If only she spoke with a bit more kindness, she might leave a different impression. Shannon and Kumasawa entered from the hallway with a serving cart. Please excuse us. Hello again. You were just here. Come on. Now then, let us move on to today's dessert. Goda and the others lay the beautifully adorned dessert out in front of us all. I guess it's true when they say you have another stomach for dessert. I thought I'd already filled up on delicious food. But as soon as I laid eyes on that dessert, my stomach started yelling more. I don't know much about desserts, but this looked really good. A white pudding-like substance was garnished with 2 shades of red sauce. And elegant rose petals adorned the dish. Normally during a high-class meal like this, you're supposed to wait for the chef to instill the virtues of this particular meal before eating. However, Mario was completely indifferent to strict rules like that, so she got excited with this beautiful and delicious-looking dessert, jumping into the fray as soon as it was placed before her. Aunt Rosa scolded her, calling it bad manners, but George responded by saying, Now, it's okay. Ooh, this part's sour. This part's sour. That way, this one's no good. Ooh. Mario exclaimed as she sampled the 2 colored sauces. What, some are good and some are bad? Okay, I'll give it a go. Apparently one sauce was sweet and the other sour. Despite it being bad manners, I also stuck my little finger in and licked it. Whoa, one of the sauces was sour enough to make you pucker up. If it were yellow, I'd have suspected lemon, but I couldn't guess what kind of sourness would be red. I decided to ask Shannon, who was putting away the serving cart behind us. Shannon, what kind of sauce is this sour stuff? Shannon hesitated. Maybe her job was just to set the table, so she doesn't really know. Still, even considering that, she seems pretty stressed. Maybe I shouldn't have asked. Or did they use some ingredient that we'd be better off not knowing about? Well, Natsuhi made a gesture that seemed to indicate an oncoming headache. Kumasawa, who's sitting at the table at the opposite seat, began to chuckle. You see, Goda got away with it because every character's second personality is Goda. Everyone can just switch between Goda and their real self at will. He's like a poltergeist or a phantom or something. What do you think we made it out of? Oh, it'll shock you. Huh? I don't have a clue. Wait a sec, Kumasawa. That's pretty creepy. So what is it? Don't tell anyone, okay? Listen very carefully. Kumasawa leaned across from the other side of the table. I leaned forward myself when she asked. Their interest caught. Jessica, George, and of course Maria also paid 3 years closer. Ooh. What? What? Quickly. Quickly. You see, the sour part is made from juice squeezed from a mackerel. Oh. But mackerel? That's crazy, we all thought, horrified. Only Maria accepted it, nodding sagely. Ooh? Mackerels are sour. This is what comes out when you squeeze them. Oof. When Maria started clamoring that mackerel was sour, the adults weren't able to contain their laughter. Only Aunt Rosa, her face red, whispered to Maria that mackerel's sour only once prepared as shimesaba. Ah, now I totally remember. Kumasawa was always like this, wasn't she? I think I remember her tricking me too in all sorts of ways when I was young. The most lethal's gotta be that one. Those flimsy black things in Chinese dishes. They're kikurage mushrooms. She told me they were penguin meat and I went all around school like a smartass telling everyone, didn't I? Kumasawa, you sure haven't changed. You know Mario's gonna believe it now, right? Oh, it's just a joke. Now Goda's going to tell us what the sauce really is, won't he? Goda looked a little put off about his masterpiece being laughed at for such a bizarre reason, but after clearing his throat once, he introduced the dessert to us. Well then, allow me to introduce our desserts. After seeing how much you all enjoyed the rose garden earlier today, I finished this panna cotta in a rose garden style. The rose petals scattered across were selected just now from that very rose garden. The sauce is a combination of 2 reds, strawberry, and rose hips. Isn't that kind of a pain having to pick rose petals off your food? Please enjoy this mixture of the strawberry sweetness and the rose hip sourness. Furthermore, the rose petals are merely decorative, so please avoid them while you eat. That sounds like a pain in the ass. With that said, please enjoy. Oh man, I almost want to applaud before eating. Just like with medicine, reading the detailed description first seems to make it work a lot better. As Goda-san elaborated on the details of this dessert, it started to feel even more appetizing. Seriously, should you call him subtle or just talented? The dessert was probably planned from the beginning, but taking the hint when we all stopped in front of the rose garden earlier today, he displayed an incredible and timely awareness by just adding a few rose petals from that garden. This combination of sweet and sour was also exquisite. If it was just sweet, you'd just get used to it and bored halfway through. But if you reached the sour sauce at that point, you'd get a really vivid taste. And then once you returned to the sweet sauce, all the sourness in your mouth would be replaced with an enjoyable sweetness. I'm sure that everyone else felt the same way. Sweet and salty is pretty good too. That's my go-to. Every time Goda passed by one of our seats, someone praised the taste in his presentation. How is it, madam? Splendid as always. It is worthy of entertaining our guests. I am most grateful for your words. Madam, did you know? I've heard that rosehip has the ability to cure headaches. I thought that you in particular would appreciate it, so I had it specially prepared. Is that so? Thank you. See, didn't I tell you, Natsuhi? Rosehip is great for headaches. So it seems. I do hope it actually helps. Ah, Goda, I love you. Hey, later on, why don't you tell me how they're treating you? Or if you can't, just let me know what sort of sour you'd like. Having your talent confined to this small island is sacrilege to humanity's cooking culture. What do you think about working your craft for my company and delighting all our customers? Oh, Hideyoshi, you're trying to steal away our Goda? Now that won't do at all. We'd better start treating Goda better, or he'll get snatched up. Yes, you really should. If you don't, someone's gonna grab him, and you'll be stuck with 3 meals of Kumasawa-style mackerel cooking a day, won't you? Oh, that's harsh. It seems someone's holding a grudge against me. Everyone let out a huge laugh. According to Jessica, Kumasawa's mackerel jokes were a running gag that her parents had long since gotten used to. Kumasawa often claimed that mackerels had precious nutritional value, which could slow aging, making people smarter and more. Supposedly, while it couldn't stop the outward signs of aging, it helped prevent it on the inside. Since she was still spirited enough to tell these kinds of jokes at her age, there must be something to that theory. Oh ho ho, in that case, if you'll excuse me, prepare yourself for tonight's dinner. I'll be cooking plenty of mackerel dishes for you all, so you'd better look forward to it. Well, we sure will. Can't wait to get all puckered up from tonight's shimesawa. That sounds wonderful. I wonder if they'll be serving any good Japanese sake. Oh, we certainly will. Haven't you heard about Kenjima's famous mackerel shochu? Why do I choose between commissioning a rendition of Patchley's theme or the Prisoners theme when I already have both? Because I don't have one like specially made for the stream or anything like that. All the songs I use like in the playlist are grabbed for free off of Nico Nico Commons and places like that. You are allowed to use them for free, but I like something that's like all my own that I can like put in whatever I want and essentially like not have to feel indebted to someone for that made it and put it up for free, you know? It feels like I earned it in that case by paying for it. Also, Tripper does really good music, so I'd love to hear what he does. Let's see. Kumasawa, together with Shannon, bowed and pushed the serving cart away. It was pretty funny to watch Goda, who looked like his show had totally been stolen, explain in a serious voice that we'd be having calf steak for dinner. Kumasawa, thanks for doing that back there. As she pushed the serving cart, Shannon bowed her head very deeply. Oh, I haven't done anything that requires thanks. Kumasawa may have played dumb, but she'd obviously understood and saved Shannon in the nick of time. Back when Battler had asked about dessert, Shannon had unfortunately hesitated. There may have been several ways to dodge the question, but all of them would have required some quick wits. Shannon, who hesitated when hard-pressed for a response, out of the peel, was always suffering because of this small weakness. If only Shannon had a little of the craftiness needed to cleverly shake off a mistake, like Goda, her life would have been a bit easier. The fact that she could perform other tasks flawlessly made this weakness even more unfortunate. However, there were some who understood Shannon's honest nature, her inability to gloss over a mistake, and draw attention away from it. That was why Kumasawa had smoothly come to her rescue. I just heard from Genji that there will be a change in the afternoon shifts. I believe you were given a break until this evening. Oh, I'm jealous. Huh? Oh, sorry, I haven't checked the shift chart yet. Ah, yes. I was thinking you might start cooking some mackerel in the oven. If you don't mind, I'd be happy if you'd help out a bit before your break. Ah, yes. I'll be delighted to help. To Shannon, Kumasawa was like a mother among the servants. The dining hall needed to be cleaned up, so we were chased out. Instead, tea was being served in the parlor. Apparently, they'd prepared the black tea that Aunt Rosa had bought for Aunt Natsuhi. Maria said she also wanted to have some black tea, but my old bastard said she couldn't, and told us children to go outside. To go play outside. Valorant, why don't we all go for a walk outside? Go and take a look at the roses or something, but keep a close eye on the weather. The sky's still clear, but the weather report kept on talking about rain. Ooh, I want to go to the beach. The beach! Oh, that sounds wonderful. Lying on a sandy beach isn't something you get to do often, is it? Ah, good point. Okay, let's all go to the beach then. Ooh, let's go, let's go. Maria, be careful not to get your clothes wet. Or your shoes. Ooh, won't get wet. Do I think excessively cheery or needlessly somber is more appropriate? I want something chill. Essentially. So, like, a lot of the songs that I have in my playlist, more or less, kind of the same mood. But I also want there to be a bit of trumpet in there, because Toho is trumpets for me. Very important. But if I had to pick between them, I mean, Somber just isn't a good mood at all, right, for like opening songs, so I guess I'd go with overly cheery instead of like overly depressing. Hi. Not, but not that way. Go the wrong way. Whatever. That obedience is so cute. Battler, make sure you keep an eye out for Mario, okay? Sure, leave it to me. Hey, you're pretty obedient and cute yourself, listening to Kyrie like that. Why don't you also listen to me obediently for a change? Huh. Hell no. Let's go, everyone, come on. The children flew out of the parlor. There he is. Hello. They were replaced by Genji, who pushed a serving cart in and prepared to serve the tea. The parlor was filled with a sublime aroma which delighted everyone while they waited to sate their thirst. Rudolph's family certainly seems close. It's a wonderful thing. Quit it. We're no match for your family. That's true. You raised Jessica to be so adorable. I imagine that's yet another fruit of your talents, education, and training, Natsuhi. Thank you. Natsuhi answered coldly. The conversation broke off then, and the parlor fell silent. Maybe Hideyoshi couldn't bear the silence, because he broke it himself with an exaggerated gesture. Still, they sure do grow fast. I thought they'd be kids forever, but they started getting huge all of a sudden, and then they're adults like us. Battler looks like a completely different person now. His body has grown much bigger, but he's still just a kid. Though you could say the same about my husband. I wonder where the border between child and adult is. I still don't feel as though I've grown up. Isn't that pitiful? That's not something the mother of a child should say. That's right. We're not children anymore. We're all adults now, so I wish we could talk together on an intellectual level rather than an emotional one. Here we go. When Ava smiled with sharp sarcasm, everyone seemed to get more tense. It felt as though that pleasant tea aroma had been tossed out the window. Since long ago, we've always endeavored to engage in intellectual conversations. It seems your sarcasm occasionally misses its mark, just as it always has. Oh, what is it you've always endeavored to do? My, I wish I could wrap those words up and send them to this room a few decades ago. Right, Rosa? Rosa gave a vague smile. She knew that, whether she agreed or disagreed, she'd earned the displeasure of one of her siblings. It was a bit of worldly wisdom that had been essential for someone growing up as the youngest sibling. Quit it, Kraus. We'd better get started on our main topic while the brats aren't around. Let us make that our intellectual discussion. As Rudolph glanced over the faces of all present, some let out a slight sigh and some let out a small look of resignation across their face. They were approaching their unavoidable, true agenda. Last year, his life expectancy was estimated at about 3 months, which I guess means he's got negative 9 months left now. Should we take that to mean it might suddenly happen any time? The family head is still alive and well. The fact that you'd bring up such an inappropriate topic under the light of day makes me doubt your sanity, Rudolph. Still, Nazi, this is the sort of thing you can't put off until after something happens. He's still healthy now, which makes this the perfect time to talk about this while we've still got time to plan. It's just a bit of financial etiquette, you might say. It seems father's the focus of everyone's concern. Dr. Nanjo, could we hear the details from you? That appears to be what everyone else is waiting for, after all. Ahem. Nanjo, who'd been standing by the window and staring out at the rose garden, let out a single cough when he realized he was being called. Dr. Nanjo, how is father's condition? Well, to begin, allow me to start with a revision, since my estimate last year, that he had only 3 months left, was not borne out. No need to explain. You're saying that measuring remaining life is only a prediction, not a promise, right? That is correct. Because of that, while I will accept everyone's repeated questions, I can by no means confirm when he will pass away. It means life is supported by their body and their mind. If the body is weak, the situation becomes more dangerous, but if the mind is strong enough to compensate for the weakness, the effects of one condition can sometimes remain in a subdued state. So you're saying that even if his body is weak, his mind is still firm and spirited. Kyrie, sorry, please stay quiet for a bit. I'm sorry. That is correct. Kinzo's body is being overwhelmed by the demon of ill health. This will hold especially true as long as he continues to partake of such strong alcohol. So he's in a crisis now because he drinks, and maybe he's lived this long because he drinks. There's Dad for you, the heavy drinker. Well then, Doctor, I know you can't give anything more than a prediction, but what do you think about Father's chance of living until this day next year? That's quite a rude question to ask about the family head. Nancy jumped on Ava, not even bothering to hide her astonished expression. Ava stared back daringly, but Hideyoshi realized what was going on and tried to smooth things over with a forced smile. Ah, Natsu, forgive her. Ava, choose your words a bit more carefully, okay? I'm sorry. I was just so concerned about Father's condition. Is that so? I hadn't realized. Dr. Nanjo, please tell us. For the sake of the beautiful love of daughter worried about her father's lifespan. Cross laughed sarcastically, and Ava, smiling sweetly, returned an identical chuckle. You ask, rather, whether he will still be healthy next year. But as a doctor, it is very hard to say. Because while I do think this lull in his condition will continue for a while, if he suffers some kind of fit, there may be nothing we can do. After all, Rokenjima is a solitary island. It's not as though an ambulance could quickly jump in to save him. Normally, I would want to have him placed in a large hospital on the mainland, but Father stated that he does not want his noble research interrupted. It seems he holds a grudge over the way we tried to force him out last year. Apparently, he strongly suspects that he'll be shut away in some hospital if he goes outside, and that's how things are now. Has Dr. Nanjo been examining him? Father trusts Dr. Nanjo. It seems he can be examined when in one of his better moods. I can examine his condition, but if I try to recommend medicine or hospitalization, he refuses to listen. I've really only been able to look. It's true some people hate doctors. Still, what a hassle. Nanjo sighed deeply. The purpose of an examination is to determine what medical treatment would be appropriate. Receiving an examination and then not following the advice given makes the whole thing pointless. So, to sum it up, he's still expected to live 3 months. There's no way to guess how long he'll continue to live while still on the verge of death. Rudolph, couldn't you be a little more discreet with your words? Sorry. I've always talked this way. Give me a break. I understand how Dr. Nanjo sees it. What about you, Kraus? To be perfectly honest, I have to disagree with Dr. Nanjo. I find it truly difficult to think a father as a person so sick that he only has 3 months left to live. His yell is as healthy as ever, and I still get chills at the thought of his fists raining down on me. Pushing the care of your father solely on the shoulders of the eldest sibling is far from fair. Aha. In the next world, get born after me. Okay, let's get back on track. So, in the opinion of our impartial and neutral doctor, it would be odd for him to go at any time. No offense to you, Kraus, but I'd rather trust the opinion of an expert in this field. Which means it's definitely not too early to start talking about Dad's assets. Father's personal funds probably reach as high as several 10 billion yen, right? But it's not as though that's all neatly gathered as ready cash. It's not as simple as simply cutting a birthday cake with a knife. That's an interesting way to put it. That's right, you sometimes get strawberries or chocolates on top of the cake, making it hard to cleanly cut it into equal parts. Given that, don't you think it's important to discuss beforehand how best to stick the knife in? Sorry. Throat gets clogged after a while. I cannot understand how you can all openly discuss this as though the family head is dead even though he's still alive. Come now, don't you see how important this is? After all, when the time comes, the inheritance of his fortune must be carried out immediately, right? Moreover, the glorious Ushimura house's wealth is vast. Don't you understand that careful discussion is necessary beforehand? There's a huge difference between this family's resources and your family's wealth. How rude. My birth family has nothing to do with this. Nancy responded indignantly, though in a low voice, and the already dark atmosphere grew even more hostile. Give it a rest, Ava. Nancy, forgive us. Pardon our rudeness. Hideyoshi tried to smooth things over by glancing at both with a forced smile, but it only resulted in making the hostility between Ava and Natsuki even more intense. It seems I'll just get in the way if I stay any longer. Please excuse me. Nando rose from his seat and exited the parlor. To an outsider, it may have seemed like a normal act of courtesy, but his back was watched by several glances envious of his ability to escape. I have to go clean up the cat litter boxes. 1 second. And now it won't stink anymore after a bit. Okay. After the doctor had exited and his footsteps had disappeared into the distance, Kraus recrossed his legs. In other words, this is what you would all like to say. Father's remaining life is short. You want to quickly enter into a practical conference concerning the distribution of the inheritance. Why are you so eager, I wonder? Certainly, as you say, estimating and distributing the Ushimura family's wealth is no simple task. In that case, should we make careful and deliberate calculations? It seems to me that you're all impatient to split up the cake tonight. Isn't that true, Rosa? What reason is there to be hasty? We aren't being hasty. However, we need to have an agreement between the siblings. It doesn't matter when we do that, but if the day Father's condition worsens is approaching, discussing the matter beforehand hardly seems hasty to me. Rosa shot a glance at Ava and Rudolph. As the youngest sibling in the family, it was hard for her to be cross-examined by the eldest. Oh? Is that your true opinion? I didn't expect that the most honest and pure-hearted of the siblings would say something like that. I wonder if those two told you to say it. Quit it, Kraus. Rose is one of Dad's kids too. She's got as much right to his inheritance as the rest of us. It's only natural that she'd be interested. After all, Dad'll definitely die, and that's not something that'll happen in the distant future. On the contrary, Kraus, you're way too relaxed. It almost seems like you'd like nothing better than to turn the discussion away from the inheritance issue. What do you mean by that? Are you trying to accuse my husband of something? But calm down, Nazi. Listen to what we have to say. Kraus, I hear the times have been extremely good lately. Yes, since last year we've been in an unprecedented boom and the yen keeps on rising. It seems that it's no longer a dream that the dollar will reach 100 yen. Also, the ruling party says that it'll establish health resort maintenance law by next year. At this moment, resort development companies across Japan are running about, trying to gather as much funding as they can. You certainly seem to know a lot about it. Japan is about to experience an unprecedented boom. It'll be a repeat of the Korean War demands, the time during which father revived the Ushimura family. The people of Japan have been working like mad, achieving massive economic growth and becoming the most well-off people in the world, reaching the height of our prosperity. We've reached an era where private spending is vast, which means easy money for institutions that can capitalize on that fact. The three kinds of electrical appliances no longer represent the people's needs. The people need ski resorts, golf courses, public pools, resort hotels, and theme parks. Have you gone to Disneyland, which opened just a few years ago? What an excellent theme park. It's a place where even an adult can be a kid and have fun with his family. No longer do we count our sole virtue to be selfless devotion while failing to care for our families. We've become the most prosperous people in the world, and now we can finally enjoy the benefits. Kraus, your foresight's nothing to sneeze at. When I heard that sort of thing several years ago, I thought it was crazy. But when I heard about the G5 Nations Plaza Accord, that all changed. The yen shot up, and I'll bet the price of land skyrockets soon too. It won't be long before Japan becomes the economic center of the world. You've got a great sense of the direction the world's moving, Kraus. At least there can be no debate about that. I feel the same as Hideyoshi. Oh. Kraus, you can read into the next decade of history. I'll bet you got that keen sense from Dad, and it's incredible. However, unlike Dad, the timing of predictions has been a bit off sometimes, right? Kraus, you've been starting resort projects everywhere, convinced that Japan will soon see a boom, but almost all of them continue to fail. Well, I'm sure that the era you predicted will soon arrive. It seems you misread the timing of that boom. You were too early. You then panicked and tried to sell everything off, which only opened up the wound even further. If your nose was really so reliable, then there should be no reason for you to sell off your property. Is this proof that you mistrust your own ability? How rude. Are you trying to insult my husband? Natsu's forehead creased as she rose from the sofa. Ava, paying this no heed, stared at Kraus with a confident smile. Kraus, who also maintained his confident appearance, told Natsu to sit down. Please stop, Natsuhi. Ava's always been incapable of talking any other way. Calm down a little, or your headache will get worse. There's proof of your lack of talent right next to us. After all, Kraus, weren't you all excited about turning this island into a resort? You built a wonderful resort hotel and beautifully maintained the garden. I'm just an amateur and don't pretend to understand, but you must have used a significant amount of money for that, right? And what is that to you? My husband's business is none of yours. Actually, that's not true, Natsuhi. Our Kenjima doesn't belong to Kraus, it belongs to Dad. Of course, the hotel does belong to Kraus, right? In fact, we'd be more than willing to pay lodging fees for the night. What do you think, Rosa? Well, if what I have on hand will suffice. If I can make it to a resort, this island's financial worth will rise. It is true that expenses have piled up, but we can expect a large harvest in the future. So if it's, not obvious, the guest house was supposed to be a hotel for his resort. When that happens, all of you stand to profit as well, do you not? I understand that. If the value of this island rises, that'll increase our portions when we distribute the inheritance. Of course, I want to ask you to divide the island and the mansion into 4 equal parts. We can just resolve the matter with money equal to the value of the property. If you understand that much, then what about my business makes you so dissatisfied? We aren't dissatisfied, we're uneasy. In the first place, Kraus, when do you plan to open that hotel? Up this way, you won't get anything out of it except our grubby handprints, right? That's right. It's an important tool for your business, isn't it? Surely you can't keep it locked up until the moment you open it. Buildings go bad if you don't use them and air them out every once in a while. Even so, it's a bit extravagant for a guest house that we only use once a year. Right, Rosa? That's right. Considering how wonderful it is, I'm sure it will become quite popular once you open it. Oh, so the hotel you keep talking about is the guest house. It's splendid. Just as Rosa said, if you were to open it, I'm sure it'd become popular. The lodging they've been guided to wasn't originally intended to serve as a guest house. It was originally constructed as a resort hotel. However, even though it was built 2 years previously, there was still absolutely no prospect of it opening. Kraus, it's just like all your enterprises. Your attention and planning are both fabulous. Then, it always becomes unmaintainable partway through, and ends before you have a chance to earn any profit. You were brilliant when you saw that using this island only as a place to live was a waste. I think it was a pretty good plan to turn it into a resort that could use the prospect of marine sports, fishing, honeymoons, and the like to attract customers. If I were the oldest son, I'm sure I'd have strained my brain looking for a way to make more profit off this island. But 2 full years have passed since you finished building, right? After 2 full years, after 2 years, you still haven't had the opportunity to open it. Where's the managing company you entrusted it to? Impertinence. That is not my husband's fault. There has just been some trouble with the company that my husband contracted with. No matter how you look at it, we are victims here. And yeah, the rumors we've heard about this company you hired haven't been good at all. Let's be clear about this, dear. Did you really think we wouldn't hear about how lack of payment, embezzlement, and other issues led to the project disintegrating mid-flight? We even have evidence. I don't know what kind of evidence you think you found, but it's all baseless. As new members of the tourism industry, it's necessary for us to lay the groundwork with various people. It's also important to investigate the trustworthiness of our partners. It's merely taken us some time to meet that goal. I'll admit that, in my rashness, the hotel was completed too early. However, it's not as though we're paying maintenance costs. It's a foundation that will eventually become immensely significant. Liar. I'll bet you want to liquidate it but can't. After all, there's no reason for anyone to buy such an extravagant hotel on an isolated empty island without any established sightseeing routes. And anyway, what about all the loans you made for this project? Even if you aren't incurring maintenance costs, the borrowed money that you can't return just keeps growing. Sorry, Kraus, but I've investigated the development plan for this island a bit. To be honest, I haven't heard anything good either. Hideyoshi, I can see how you might be left with that impression by looking only at the current financial situation. However, this is a forward-looking investment. I have no choice but to admit that my prediction was mistaken, and that up until now, several liabilities have been created. However, the times have finally caught up with me. I will soon regain everything that I've lost up to this point. No, actually, all the investments I've made up until now will finally return to my possession. That's right, just like throwing away a small fry to catch a salmon, they'll come back even bigger than before. I'll accept that. The resort business will probably see an unprecedented boom before long, though I don't know if it'll be enough to cover all your debt. However, Kraus, after all your failures in the past, who exactly do you expect to provide you with funding? And this is a small amount we're talking about. You'll need enough funding to fill the massive hole you've dug. What are you trying to say, Hideyoshi? Nazi, please don't get angry. We looked into this too. We checked to see who might have provided Kraus with enough financing to support his recent large-scale projects despite a string of failures. And we discovered that no such backer exists. The iron rule of the money roulette is that you bet against the loser. Kraus, you're a fairly well-known loser in this field. There we go. It's true that prosperous times are about to come, but when we looked for people who considered that enough to overlook your string of failures, and also had enough for the investment, we found no candidates. So, the big question now is where you got that money from. Oh, now isn't this intriguing? And? Dear, how long do you plan to let these ridiculous remarks stand? Sit down, Nazi. Let's cut to the point. Kraus, you've been diverting Dad's private funds for your own businesses. There's pretty much no room for doubt. If you think we made some kind of mistake, please feel free to explain. Rudolph, don't call it diverging funds. This is embezzlement, plain and simple. A huge crime that can be criminally prosecuted. This sort of rudeness cannot be tolerated. How can you face the successor to the Ushima head family and level these absurd accusations? They aren't absurd, they're right on the mark. I'm sure he'd like to somehow make his business succeed and recover his losses, but his debt keeps getting bigger. He's just trying to cover up the failure of one gamble, making an even bigger one. It's only natural that you try to grab any source of funding close at hand. Let me be frank, Kraus. What you're doing is embezzlement. You're betraying Father. You know that we'll have the courts settle this after it's all over, right? Do you think that kind of person has any right to call themselves the successor to the Ushima head family? Avalda, you dare to claim that he has betrayed the family head? You no longer have the right to straddle the threshold of the glorious Ushima family. Leave this place at once. Now. Get out. Natsuhi, who had already recently raised her anger, shouted at Ava in a rage. She then pointed alternately at Ava in the hallway, demanding that she leave. Ava took out a folding fan and fanned herself with it, glaring maliciously at Natsuhi as though silently daring her to repeat what she said. However, her mouth was still smiling, curved in the shape of a crescent moon. In that unpleasant silence, Rosa gulped. Hey, Natsuhi? To whom do you think you're speaking in such a tone? I'm speaking to the exceedingly rude sister of my husband. As the person in charge of the main family's kitchen, I cannot overlook any more of this. In charge of the kitchen? Be silent, lily maidservant. Eva folded the fan with a snap and rose to her feet energetically. Compared to the elegance and playfulness she'd shown until a second ago, she was now unimaginably aggressive. How foolish. You stand down. Before Eva of the Ushimura family. You tell me to stand down? Me, Ushimura Eva, the third ranked in the Ushimura family hierarchy and the one allowed to sit at the left shoulder of the head? Know your place. And then look at your shabby self in a mirror. Where's the symbol of the wing on your clothes? Where are you permitted to wear the one-winged eagle? Are you nothing more than a borrowed womb to house the next successor to the family? Understand your place, you common housemaid. Eva's face twisted hideously as her words gouged into Natsu's swords like talons wrenching at it. Yeah, remember, she married into the family. That's why it's important to remember who's who with the adults. She may live here right next to Kinzo and the oldest son, but that doesn't mean that she's important in their strict hierarchy. There were 100 ways Natsu wanted to respond. However, her anger and sorrow crushed her throat, and none of those words managed to make it to her mouth. Her anger had nowhere to go, and became a single hot tear that slowly dripped down. What's wrong? If you have something to say, please do so. Come on. Eva faced her with a provocative gaze. However, Natsu could do nothing but tremble, her clenched fists quivering. Cross quietly broke that powder keg tension. Natsuhi, leave your seat. You should go cool your head. What? Natsu, resenting the fact that her husband had not come to her aid, shifted the focus of her attack. Dear, don't you understand what they're saying about you? These people are baselessly calling you a traitor to father. They're making light of the fact that we protect the glory of the Ushimura family, even though we are constantly spending every effort to earn that glory from father. They trample all of that underfoot with their hateful rambling. And you don't even try to fight back? Why? I'm only standing up, Ross, because you won't. But you've been putting the entire burden on me for some time now. And now you tell me to go cool my head? It's always me. Even though I've always considered this family's affairs so seriously, you've... Natsu was already unable to hide her tears. She flew from the room in that state. After that, all that remained was a somewhat embarrassed mood about the parlor. When the sound of footsteps grew distant and silence returned, Kraus shrugged his shoulders slightly. I apologize for my wife. She's always been bad at controlling her emotions. It's even been rough for me. If that's what's been managing your household, you must suffer to no end, Kraus. Poor Natsuhi. She's in a really tough spot. Madam, it's nothing. Leave me be. Natsuhi flew into her room and threw herself onto her bed, lamenting. Those heartwarming sobs reached Kumasawa in the hallway. Poor Madam Natsuhi. There's a deep enmity between her and Eva. Explaining the relationship would be very trying for me as a woman. The Ushimura family holds blood in high regard, but if a woman marries and leaves the family, they're normally removed from the family register. Thus, under normal circumstances, Eva should have been removed when she married Hideyoshi. However, there is no one deserving of blame in this matter. The madam certainly bears no guilt. There's nothing to call it other than the whim of God. Kraus and Natsu were not blessed with children for some time. After all, this is the male-dominant Ushimura family. A wife is merely a tool to create an heir. If such a wife cannot fulfill her only duty, she will not even be treated as a human. It pains me to remember how the master tortured Madam during that time. Back then, a wedding between Eva and Hideyoshi was being discussed. Eva was sly. Taking advantage of Madam's inability to become pregnant, she gained the favor of the master. She inspired him to allow her to marry and give birth to a successor herself, making sure to avoid transferring her name out of the Ushimura register. There was a vast difference in the Ushimura family, hierarchy between Madam, who married into the Ushimura family and was treated like an outsider, and Eva, who was related to the family by blood, and whose husband took on the Ushimura family name. Furthermore, Eva actually gave birth first, into a boy. As for how much weaker Madam's position was than Eva's, well, I believe you could see for yourself. I'm sure Madam is tormented by the thought that if only she'd gotten pregnant earlier, the master wouldn't have accepted Eva's request to keep her last name after marriage, and Eva wouldn't have been permitted to act as arrogantly as she did today. However, that was not Madam's fault. All the blame lies within God's whims and the stork that delivered Jessica late. Even so, Madam won't allow herself to see things this way. She probably can't help but cry bitter tears as a woman at her inability to carry out the duties expected of a wife. How sad. I cannot do anything except watch over her from the shadows. And again, if someone just watches people and gets sad. She's just emotional Krillin, basically, right now. And now we go back in time. I think we're going back to see what the cousins are doing now, probably. I would assume as much. Yep. We cross the hallway again on our way to the entrance. As we did, we once again spotted that witch's portrait. However, spotted is probably not the best word to describe that experience. It was more like our eyes were inordinately drawn to it. That woman's eyes, with their sage-like glamour, definitely had the power to make those who viewed it stand rooted to the spot. So this is the witch Beatrice. Wonder if that story's true. Ooh, Ballard doesn't believe. Back when he'd asked what this picture was, the first person told him it had been Moria. Oh, so this isn't from Ballard's perspective anymore. Weird. Therefore, when Ballard showed signs of doubt, Moria must have felt that Ballard didn't have faith in her. Of course, that wasn't what Ballard meant. Moria ran up to the portrait and began banging on a plate hanging below it. Maybe the title of the portrait was written there. Moria, trying to prove that she wasn't lying, obstinately continued to hit the plate. Sorry about that. It's not like I doubt anything you said, Moria. Ooh, Ballard believes. Ooh. When he patted Moria's head and apologized, she seemed to accept it, sticking out her chest and proudly ooh-ooing. As she does, it's the cry of the wild Moria. What's this? My beloved witch Beatrice. Behold the sweet fish river. What's with this weird huge epitaph? The plate did have the title of the portrait written on it, but it was too big to contain only that. Beneath the title was what appeared to be a long epitaph. If you just skimmed over it, several unnerving words would jump out at you. Incredible, isn't it? Grandfather had that made. Pretty deep, huh? Ooh, I know. It's the place where the gold's hidden. Wait, is that story about the Ushibita family's hidden gold? Now there's another thing I remember. From long ago. Hold on, George, is this for real? Grandfather had this made, but he never said anything about this picture of the epitaph. Even so, amongst the family, it's often whispered that it indicates the location of Grandfather's hidden gold, and that he'll relinquish the inheritance and the gold to the person who solves the riddle. Ooh, I hear that too. Lots and lots of gold. Well, something like that. Something like 10 metric tons of gold bars. I think it's fake, though. Still, when you read about it in an epitaph like this, it almost seems real. Now, back in Battler's perspective. I think I already explained Grandfather's upbringing, but let me also mention the Ushibita family's legend of the gold. Grandfather succeeded the Ushibita family after it was destroyed in the Great Kanto earthquake, and by successfully writing the stormy seas after the war, he managed to accumulate great wealth. That much of the story everyone knows. However, this is where the strange part begins. Part of it involves Grandfather's black magic obsession, so its credibility is extremely low, but... well, wait until the end before you doubt or make fun of it. After the war, Grandfather correctly predicted what the future would hold and won in a huge gamble, accumulating a vast store of wealth. But there's a mysterious legend about how he gained his initial funding. Grandfather came from a branch family and had no connections in the business world or the financial world. Even though he later built connections with the occupying forces, he supposedly started as a nameless person who hadn't yet gained anyone's trust. It takes trust to gather money. There's no way anyone would lend money to someone they didn't trust. How did Grandfather, who had no reputation at all, manage to obtain his first vast chunk of funds? When asked that question, Grandfather supposedly answered like this. On a certain day, I encountered the Golden Witch Beatrice. Grandfather then went on and on about his continuing research into alchemy and techniques for summoning demons in order to become a great magician. And the entity summoned as a result of the demon calling ceremony was the Golden Witch Beatrice. He then apparently made a contract by which he would receive fortune and honor in exchange for his own soul. The witch then granted Grandfather 10 tons of gold. Grandfather used this gold as collateral to prepare a vast quantity of funds, which he then used to multiply his wealth many times over and revive the Ushibita family. It seems the story is so old that even our parents were told it when they were children. So, back when our parents were young, they explored this island in all sorts of ways, believing that the gold Grandfather had received from the witch might be hidden somewhere. However, since there was the danger of them getting lost in the abandoned forest, Grandmother began to spread the story that the witch lived in the forest and approaching it was forbidden. I remember that old story. When we were little, we also went over the island. We also went all over the island searching for treasure after our parents told us about it. Didn't we get lost in the forest once, then start crying till some of the servants found us? Our parents got so mad. Dang, that takes me back. We sure were idiots, weren't we? After all, Grandfather only bought this island after using those funds to get rich, right? That means he must have had the gold before coming here. There's no way the gold's on this island. That's not necessarily so. Maybe the gold was hidden on the island from the beginning, and he bought the whole island just to ensure that it'd be his and his alone. It was a whole 10 metric tons of it, right? It seemed more realistic that he tried to secure the place where it was hidden, rather than try to move it all. This epitaph was made 2 years ago. And since Grandfather wrote it himself, yeah, it does make the legend of the gold seem more believable. so-called witch's gold that revived the Ushibuna family weighed 10 tons. Maybe that's sleeping somewhere, ready to be turned over to whoever can solve grandfather's riddle. Maybe that's why he did it. Yeah, I guess that sounds like grandfather's style or something. Hehehe. If it's true, that's pretty incredible. The epitaph carved into the plate was very mysterious, with something like a poem or a song written into it. That text was incredibly disturbing, filled with the signs of grandfather's black magic hobby, and its contents were in incredibly bad taste, truly bad taste. But it could definitely be viewed as a puzzle, which, if solved, might lead to hidden gold. Whether that's what he intended or not, I can't even imagine what his true motive might have been. All we know for sure is that grandfather put this shady epitaph here so that everyone in the family could see it. We also know that he's hinted at the existence of the gold without ever talking about where it might be hidden, at least so far. These facts were then embellished by the imagination of our parents, who were convinced that grandfather was challenging us to a battle of wits. Sounds just like my dad, so greedy that he'd take something like this so seriously. He may laugh at grandfather's black magic obsession, but he'd still believe the story about the hidden gold. It just sounds so good. Well, it's certainly not a realistic story. At that time, when grandfather was so nameless and had no connections, there was no way anyone would just lend him a massive quantity of gold bars for free. If such a person actually did exist, it's not unthinkable that grandfather would call such a sponsor a witch. Yeah, but it's 10 tons. 10 tons! If you cash that in, how much would it come to? I mean, it'd have to be a ridiculous amount, right? It certainly would be a ridiculous amount. They say that the total amount of gold mined by humankind since the dawn of history is 100,000 metric tons at most. That 1/10,000th of all the gold humankind has obtained throughout history should belong... that 1/10,000 of all... whatever, should belong to all just one person's insane. You know what I'm trying to say. You know how it's supposed to be phrased. On top of that, this witch supposedly had that gold collected in one place and was able to lend it to grandfather just like that. We're not talking about any ordinary person. Well, to me, that 10 tons number seems pretty fishy. After all, no one's actually seen it except grandfather, right? Even if we assume that some generous witch existed and lent him some gold, maybe it was closer to 10 kilograms than 10 tons. Even 10 kilograms would be a pretty incredible sum, right? Ooh, 10 kilograms of gold is how much? Maria, who wasn't following the story and felt like she was being spoken to in riddles, finally found a place where she could ask us a question. It was a question I also wanted answered right then. Whether it was 10 kilograms or 10 tons, it still felt like a huge amount, but I had no idea exactly how huge. George folded his arms and tried to remember the market price of gold. Well, even the value of gold is affected by the market, and the value of physical gold can change depending on its purity and the trustworthiness of the foundry. You'd also need to pay handling fees to cash it in. However, that doesn't change the fact that it's a precious metal, and some people estimate that humanity will mine all the world's gold within half a century if gold mining continues at its current rate. Just guessing haphazardly, I think you'd expect a price of about 2 million yen per kilogram. Whoa, just now I randomly said 10 kilograms since it sounded smaller. But even that would be worth 20 million yen, wouldn't it? Ooh, I weigh 28 kilograms, which means that if we had more weight in gold, we could estimate it's worth over 50 million yen. That's just unbelievable. How much would 10 tons be then? 10 kilograms is 20 million yen, which you multiply it by 1,000, so, 20 billion yen? What the hell? How much is 20 billion yen actually worth? We can only measure relative to our own pocketbooks. Anyway, let's say that a person's wages over a lifetime are about 200 million yen. You grow up and work like crazy, sacrificing your life for your company, and you're finally freed as you approach old age. Everything, including retirement money, might add up to about 200 million yen. In other words, that's the amount of money that'll be made throughout a human's life. Now, you could even call it the value of a life. So 100 times that sum is an unbelievable amount of money. If you work from age 20 to 60, that's 40 years of work, so it's equal to 4,000 years of work wages. If you worked every day starting from the Jomon period, you will only reach that number about now. Ooh, is 20 billion yen a lot? Heck yeah, it's a lot. Aria, you love shortcake, right? You could buy more shortcake than you could possibly eat for the rest of your life. However, while that might be possible with 20 billion yen in cash, I don't think it would be realistic to have that much in gold bars all in one place. Just as I said, gold is extremely heavy, so it isn't exactly convenient as a method of storing wealth. Sure, you could imagine someone gathering their fortune together as incredibly high-value stocks or precious gems. You often hear people who traded their wealth for precious gems so that they could carry it around with them during the chaotic times of the war. I don't know how much this would convert to in dollars back in Umineko's time. I think Umineko was what, like in the 80s or late 70s. I can't remember the time. I know the year comes up a lot later. But you don't usually hear stories of people exchanging their wealth for gold. It may be heavy, but it's the most trusted and stable form of wealth internationally, so maybe that was important? For example, bonds are just scraps of paper if the whole country goes under. You can also look at it that way, but even just 1 kilogram ingot is pretty heavy to carry around. 1986, yeah, there you go. Yeah, it would be during the bubble, I guess. Haven't you heard? A 50 kilogram person can't carry a 50 kilogram bag over their shoulder. With that many gold bars, the amount of labor and risk for one person would be hard to calculate. So what you're saying is, well, it'd be one thing if you had a stack of banknotes worth 20 billion yen. 20 billion yen gold would be such a big mountain that practically it'd be kind of pointless. That's right. Although the legend of the gold does have a pretty interesting ring to it, just the part about the 10 tons of gold makes it pretty much impossible. If you think about it logically like that, it sounds obviously fake. It kind of brings you back down to reality. Anyway, that's grandfather for you. Maybe he exaggerated the story of how some kind, wealthy person gave him a loan by saying he got 10 tons of gold from a witch. Even the number 10 tons feels pretty symbolic. I mean, like his gratitude for the money he borrowed was like 10 tons of gold or something? Maybe something. Maybe some rich man's leisured wife generously granted it to grandfather. And maybe he started calling this person a witch. I see, Jessica's example isn't bad. Someone who generously loaned a huge sum of money to grandfather when he still had a reputation might as well be called a witch. Furthermore, grandfather actually did use that money to build a vast amount of wealth later on. The fact that this person was so great at judging people might also justify calling her a witch. Also, since she went to the trouble of lending all that money, she might have enthusiastically overseen how it was spent. The decision to unexpectedly get involved with the occupying forces and profit from the Korean War demands might have been inspired by the witch herself. That might explain why he claimed to have received both wealth and honor from her. I see. So in other words, this witch... It's Secondhand Lions. There's a scene where people are given gold, the person being told about it. I've never heard of Secondhand Lions, no. I mean, just 1 bar would be nice, you know? That'd be enough to just make someone sad, honestly, for quite a damn long while. I don't need the whole fortune, just give me 1 or 2. As much as I can carry in my arms is a lot. And then he felt so grateful that he had that huge painting drawn and displayed. Yeah, it's not that crazy a story. It's even possible this person was an old granny who looked like a witch. Maybe grandfather idolized her, and that's why he had her drawn to look so beautiful. I'd bet if we ever did meet this person, she wouldn't be nearly this pretty. That's possible. The name Beatrice sounds pretty Western, and if you think about how everyone in our family has Western names, maybe even the name Beatrice is a result of grandfather trying to arrange some Japanese person's name to make it sound Western. I get it. That means this pretty girl doesn't exist outside the picture. Yes, that means I won't be able to rub those elegant breasts, In the first place, isn't having a witch pretty bizarre by itself? Like, you could find something like that anywhere on Earth. I often made fun of the witch, trying to distinguish myself from the kid I was 6 years ago. We feared the witch of the forest. He is distinguishing himself by talking about boobs all the time. When Maria tugged at my sleeve, I could tell by how hard she pulled that she was a bit upset. What is it, Maria? Ooh, Beatrice exists. Maria stared up at me. She had on her usual sour look, but I could tell she was angry by the color of her eyes. Witches exist. Ooh. Well, sure, they do exist, if you turn the TV on and watch anime or something. Witches exist. Ooh. I started getting impatient, not knowing why Maria was jumping on me like this. Then Jessica tapped me on the shoulder and whispered, "Dumbass, you're smashing a kid's dream. Maria really believes things like witches and Beatrice exist." Come to think of it, Maria, in social studies at your school, when you were asked to write what you wanted to be when you grew up, you wrote a witch, didn't you? Maria nodded seriously. Tears started to run from the corners of her eyes. I see. To a girl who wants to become a witch in the future, the existence of Beatrice was proof that witches do exist in this world, and it was therefore an image that she yearned for and admired. Exist. Witches exist. But Bauer still doesn't believe. Ooh. It's okay, witches do exist. I believe it. George kneeled down and hugged Maria's head. Watching this, Jessica poked my side. So that's what it is. It's like shouting that Santa Claus doesn't exist in front of a child who believes in him on Christmas Eve. I'm not the kind of guy who likes to shadow kids' dreams. Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to make fun of your dreams, so I apologize. Beatrice does exist. Even now, she's living in the forest and comes to the mansion every night to peek in and see what everyone's doing. So you shouldn't go into the forest. At night, you mustn't stare into the dark forest. You might be seen by the witch of the forest, Beatrice. After all, grandmother said so. Yeah, when I was a little kid, I wanted to grow up and be able to do magic. About like sage magician magic kits and stuff, hoping like they'd have like real magic in them, that kind of thing. I was a crazy kid. I wanted like psychic powers. I think a lot of kids probably did though, right? It'd be cool to have that stuff. Telekinesis and whatnot. I think every kid wants that. Like every adult. You know, if it were real, I'd love it. Ooh, really? Bella really believes? Yep, I believe. Sorry for doubting it. Come on, let's make up. I stuck up my hand, Mario grabbed it with her tiny hand, and we made up. Mario didn't grumble any more than that, so George and Jessica were relieved. I definitely roleplayed and pretended to be Harry Potter when I was a kid. Oh, so this is where all of you were. I was sure you would just left to go out to the beach. Shannon, carrying a basket, was surprised to find us all gathered in front of the portrait. Ah, Shannon. Well, this is the first time Balor's seen Beatrice's portrait. It's the second time, actually. He was just fascinated by it. That's right, it certainly is fascinating. Beatrice is truly beautiful. I'm sure that she captivated the master. Ah, in addition to the patron theory, there is also a theory that she was grandfather's first love. Either way, although it's been several decades since he met her, even now she holds a special place in his heart. Which must mean that he's still captivated by her. Sheesh, that must have made grandfather pretty jealous, huh? I'm not really sure, but that might actually be true. Apparently grandmother believed he was cheating on her with some blonde. Ooh? Good smell. Good smell coming from Shannon. Maria, sniffing, approached the basket Shannon was holding with interest. After hearing that, I noticed a fragrant scent with a touch of vanilla. I apologize. I was told by Kumasawa to bring them to everyone. Mackerel cookies. What is it, I wonder? Oh, excellent. Cookies. Ooh. Wanna eat cookies. Wanna eat cookies. Ooh. Please, eat as much as you'd like. But, would it be appropriate to serve cookies in a place like this in front of the portrait? Shannon sent us a glance that seemed to ask what we wanted to do about it. Well, yeah, I guess eating here would be bad manners, generally speaking. Mario, why don't we eat someplace else? Let's put the cookies in a bento and have a picnic. Ooh, have a picnic, have a picnic. If we can eat cookies, let's go. Yeah, let's go get some fresh air. We shouldn't stuff ourselves right in front of the witch. That's right, didn't we say that we wanted to go down to the beach in the first place? Let's go, let's go. Shannon, sorry, but could I ask you to get us a blanket to sit on and some flasks of tea? Flask? Who says that? Right, certainly. Only a wizard would say that. Shannon received her instructions and gracefully bowed before retracing her steps. We headed for the beach on our own. Everyone headed for the entrance in our group. Feeling as though that witch was staring down at our backs, I turned around once more. Ooh, Mallory, you still don't believe? Nope, I believe. It'd be so much cooler that way. The Golden Witch Beatrice gave grandfather 10 tons of gold. And that gold might be sleeping around here somewhere. Besides, didn't grandfather write that strange epitaph as though challenging us to find it if we can? I'd say that kind of adventurous story is way better. 20 billion yen worth of gold, huh? Yeah, even if we split it up between the four of us, that's still a ridiculous amount of money. 5 billion yen for each of us. Incredible. With that kind of money, you could practically make any sort of business prosper. In fact, we could live our whole lives fabulously without working at all. Ooh, I don't want 5 billion yen. I want cookies, cookies. Mario would take cookies over money. Still, 5 billion yen, that's like a dream. It's more for the others to split. I thought we were to do the epitaph now, but I guess that's later. Okay. That's probably a good place to stop. That's almost, yeah, it's a bit over 3 hours actually. I'm content with that. We'll do more next time. And part 1 is, again, it takes a while to get going. It's starting to like get into the meat of it a bit more, but nothing has actually happened yet. But it won't be that much longer, I don't think. Give it some time. Okay, that should do for the day. I'll try to be back on the weekend. I'll try to continue Jusei to Diamond, and then I'll continue this as well. That's kind of my plan for the weekend. Do a session, maybe do like 2-3 hours or so of each game, balance it out a bit. But thanks for coming, and have a good day, and I'll see you sometime eventually, soonish. Goodbye.